said. This is what he 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 said. What he said. This is what he said. This is what he said. This is what he said. What he said. This is what he said. This is what he said. This is what he said. If you in the covenant, you in the spirit, you know what I'm talking about. Keeping the feast. If you in the covenant, you know what I'm talking about. Keeping oblations. If you in the covenant, you know what I'm talking about. Sin and trespass, we wiping out. Sin and trespass, we wiping out. You in the covenant, fruits of the spirit, you know what I'm talking about. Keeping the feast. If you in the covenant, you know what I'm talking about. Keeping oblations. If you in the covenant, you know what I'm talking about. Sin and trespass, we wiping out. Sin and trespass. What he said. This is what he said. This is what he said. This is what he said. What he said. This is what he said. This is what he said. This is what he said. If you in the covenant, fruits of the spirit, you know what I'm talking about. Keeping the feast. If you in the covenant, you know what I'm talking about. Keeping oblations. If you in the covenant, you know what I'm talking about. Sin and trespass, we wiping out. Sin and trespass, we wiping out. If you in the covenant, fruits of the spirit, you know what I'm talking about. Keeping the feast. If you in the covenant, you know what I'm talking about. Keeping oblations. If you in the covenant, you know what I'm talking about. Sin and trespass, we wiping out. Sin and trespass, we wiping out. This is what he said. 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 Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil, for thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. This is what he said. 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 What he said. This is 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 what he said. What he said. This is what he said. This is what he said. This is what he said. Hallelujah. Shalom, peace and blessings to that priesthood, the congregation of the saints in the house of Israel scattered abroad. I'm Kahan Rashim, presiding over this Shabbat lesson, and assisting me today to my right, Kahan Gabaria, and to my left, apprentice priest Hakam. You know, this series is mind-blowing. We're continuing this series on the 10 horns, talking about the prophecy
that John the Revelator spoke of in Revelations 13. And it's an amazing series. The first week, Kahan Yardan came out and spoke on the Ottomans, Spain and Portugal, these 10 horns. And then the following week, Kahan Gabaria spoke on the Brits and the Dutch. And today we're going to speak on France and Scandinavia. But before we begin, we're going to go over the announcements. And so first off, as we normally do, we're going to speak on the calendar. The calendar is now out for, most of us that are here at the House of Wisdom know this, but those that are joining for the first time, we have the new calendar for sale. This is the 9th edition of the Enochian calendar. Get yours.
Better get it.
Gotta get it. You know, we're instructed to worship the Most High in due season at the appointed times. This calendar breaks down the appointed times, the feast days, on the summer side and the winter side. If you don't know when to worship the Most High, it's all for naught. You could have good intentions, you could mean to do well, but if you're not giving his sacrifice in due season, it's all for naught. You must have the calendar. So this is on sale. I believe that the 5th edition of the, do we still have the 5th edition, Priest?
No, we're
okay.
out. We're out. You missed your shot on that one.
I'm forgetting with the, I believe we still have some 8th edition left. I don't have it up in front of me. You can still get copies of the 8th edition that has powerful information on it, talking about the epoch of the sun. We have some of the 4th edition that talks about the tree of life. This is good reference material to have. I mean, you can pass this down. You're not going to see this codified in any book. You can't go to Amazon. You can't go to Barnes & Nobles. You can't go to Books A Million. You can't go to any publisher to find out the information that we're bringing forth in our classes. Very powerful and potent information on how to be a saint indeed. We were created to worship the Most High Abba Yahweh, as it states in Ecclesiastes. He said you must fear Abba Yahweh and keep his commandments. So we were created to worship the Most High. And so to do that, to provide him the true worship, you get to understand it by getting these calendars. So get your calendar so you know how to worship the Most High in due time and in due season. Also, right now in the summer season, we are in the Feast of Weeks. We are currently in the 4th week of the Feast of Weeks.
Hallelujah.
Now, some people might be looking at that strange. They celebrated the Feast of Weeks 2 months ago. They are completely off. They're way off. If you'd have the calendar, you would know. So why are you starting your count for the Feast of Weeks after Passover? He says when you put the sickle to the corn, right? Is there any harvest for corn in, after Passover? Nothing. You're just cutting dirt, eating dirt. That is not something that's acceptable a sacrifice for the Most High. So right now we are in the Feast of Weeks. The Feast of Ingathering is coming up. And I actually have to look at the calendar here. I'm just going to put it up. We're in the month. The 4th month, Asahel. And the 50th day of the Feast of Weeks.
The 8th or something like that, or the 9th?
Is in the 5th month, Shabbat. August, so-called August the 9th, which will be Shamuth, the 20th day. So right here is the 50th day of the Feast of Weeks. We're currently in the 4th week. We have 3 weeks left until this great day in which we're commanded to convocate and come together to celebrate on this day.
Duly.
In the right time, at the appointed time, in the appointed season, giving the right sacrifice. Next, also, this would be a great time for those that are looking to be consecrated to come and get consecrated. You have to be married to the Most High to exercise the power of this new covenant. Yahushua, you have to be an Israelite indeed. You can't just come in this old covenant that has passed away. The new covenant is here. And for those that are looking to be a part of this new covenant, to get consecrated, and to utilize the power and the promises of this covenant, get consecrated now during the Feast of Weeks. Anytime. You could come anytime. Just notify the House of Wisdom. I believe you can, reach us through, the email is houseofwisdom.how@gmail.com, I believe. Just email us. Let us know that you want to be consecrated. We do have a protocol on being consecrated. We'd like for you to watch the video on consecration so you can understand what you're getting into. This is a very serious thing. Once you get consecrated, once you come in, there's no leaving. And Abba Yahweh expects a thing. So don't make a foolish vow, but if you're seeking to be consecrated and want to get under the covenant, let us know. Watch the video, prepare yourself. The priesthood is here, and we do vet those that want to get consecrated because we want to make sure you understand why you're getting consecrated and the seriousness of it. And as I mentioned, most importantly, that you don't make a foolish vow, because once you make a vow, the Most High, Abba Yahweh, expects you to pay that vow. So let us know if you want to be consecrated. Next, we have the City of Adam. We have our own platform where saints get together. We call them the citizens of the City of Adam, where we could come together and speak on, it's fun. We could talk about religious things. We could talk about, kind of similar to what you do on social media. Not all the way. There's some limits on what you can do on our site or what we will accept. But it's also a place where we can communicate. So we can communicate what's going on in the House of Wisdom. As we're talking about now, some of these classes, eventually we're going to move off of YouTube. YouTube is shadow banning our ministry. The things that we're saying, the things that we're doing is antithetical to the people who own YouTube. I'll just put it like that. Cuddy is not too fond of what we're saying about him and revealing the things that he's doing. So, become a citizen on the City of Adam. Register. As I mentioned, we have courses. We're going to be breaking down the prophecy, revelations, all these things, these deep topics that we get into. At one point, it's going to be only on the City of Adam. It's not going to be made available to people on YouTube. We're still going to have a catalog on YouTube or a library, and it's going to be on older classes, but that new, fresh stuff will all be on the City of Adam. I already mentioned the calendar here. Also the AP class. Right now, AP 5 is in full effect, but AP 6 is approaching. So those that are seeking to be a part of the priesthood, who have a heart to serve Abba Yahweh and wants to do his work, register into the AP course. Kahan Gabari can tell you, like myself, it's life-changing. It's life-changing. It is a difficult course. You're going to be challenged. The ones that the Most High chooses, he tries.
God.
And it says that in Sirach 2. The acceptable men are tried by fire in the furnace of adversity. And you experience that. This truth is like nothing that you've ever heard before. And I'm proud to say that because we're truly set apart. And it's not to be saying something different to be set apart, but those that follow the ministry see that we're not saying anything in and of ourselves. We back it up with scripture. We haven't had one person contest what we had to say using scripture. Because there is no contest. We say all the time, it's checkmate. The only thing they can say is, oh, them brothers is off. They weird. They talking about these different things, but it's nothing substantial, right? So becoming a part of the priesthood, you get to understand and know these different mysteries that are coming out. But again, the priesthood is about serving. That's what a priest does. It's not about grandstanding. It's not about, having this information to throw your weight around, to chop heads and to do this and that. You must have a heart to serve the Most High Abba Yahweh. So if you have that heart and wisdom is drawing you, come be a part of the AP class. I mean, here Hakam could tell you the trials that one goes through, but in the end, it's sweet. It's sweet. Next, we have the Tree of Life Learning Academy. Here at the House of Wisdom, we're doing something groundbreaking. We are creating a school for our children, for the future of Israel. If any of you have children, you know that it's a cesspool out there right now. The directions that the schools are going in, the curriculum that they want to teach your children is off. And so we took the initiative by way of wisdom to start our own academy, to teach our own children. And the beautiful thing about this academy, they get to learn about their culture. They get to learn about life through the lens, through a Hebraic lens, not through a Eurocentric lens, but through a Hebraic lens, and how life revolves around our culture. They're not learning that in school. They're learning to give the Pledge of Allegiance. They're learning about how to give their strength and efforts to this kingdom that they're living in. But under the Tree of Life Learning Academy, it's going to be different. It's going to be cutting edge. It's going to be creative. It's not going to be the typical format that the public school system is utilizing now. They'll be engaged. It's going to be very creative in the curriculum that they're going to design for the children. Also, to add to that, the fifth after in-gathering in 5 weeks, the Tree of Life Learning Academy will launch. So if you have an interest in enrolling your child in the Tree of Life Academy, you have to be a citizen on the city of Adam. And let us know that you have an interest. There is a registration fee. Register so we can get a head count of the children that are going to be involved with it. Now, it's going to be local to the children here, but it's also going to be an online platform for those that are outside of the state. So although your children may not be able to interact with the children here locally, they still will be able to get the information and be a part of the Tree of Life Learning Academy. So if you have not registered, register. And once you register, if you have children and they want to be a part of the Tree of Life Learning Academy, register. Pay the registration fee, and they can be a part of that.
So now we have coming up next is the tithes. For years we've been telling people that tithes are not money, and now we see that as far as the biblical community is now taking hold and taking suit of this. What was it, last year, 2 years ago? Creflo Dollar came out and says, tithes is not money. I lied to the communication. I guess he was misinformed, and he's admitting now, because all this information that's coming out cannot be hid. So therefore, they have to change up their strategies. AP, get me Deuteronomy 14 and 22 real quick. And when you get it, go ahead and read it. Tithes was never money. It was always agriculture. And you gave a 10% of that agriculture. And that wasn't every week. You can't grow corn today and then a week later you're giving 10% of that corn. It's not ready. It takes 90 to 100 days for corn to mature. So as the brother was saying, how do you come to a feast that requires a sacrifice of your first fruits when it's still a little child or a little baby? You can't do nothing with leaves. Corn is not even ready to grow. So go ahead and read that when you get a chance.
Deuteronomy 14:22.
And go ahead and read down. I'll tell you when to stop. Go ahead.
Thou shalt truly tithe all the increase of thy seed.
Now what are the tithes of thy seed? Those are fruits, vegetables, cattle, whatever the case may be. We can go to another scripture for that, but I wanted to bring out this in particular to show you that tithes is not money. Go ahead.
Thou shalt truly tithe all the increase of thy seed, that the field bringeth forth year by year.
Bringeth forth?
That the field
bringeth forth. Did the field bringeth forth money trees where you just go and pluck $20 off and give it to the priesthood?
I wish.
No. Go ahead. Read on.
Verse 23. And thou shalt eat before the Most High thy Abba, in the place which he shall choose to place his name there.
Which is Jerusalem. Go ahead.
The tithe of thy corn, of thy wine, and of thy oil, and of the firstling of thy herd.
See that? It's not money. Keep reading.
And of thy flock, that thou mayest learn to fear the Most High thy Yahweh always.
Keep reading.
And if the way be too long for
If
thee,
you're going on a journey, right? Let's say you're in Egypt, and you know that in the sixth covenant you had to go to Jerusalem. So that journey would be too long for them. What are you to do in that journey? Go ahead.
so that thou art not able to carry it.
Right, you're not able to carry all the tithes, all the corn, all the oil, all the wine. It's just too much to give, especially if you have 10% and you had a huge crop or a huge land to grow many crops. But go ahead.
Or if the place be too far from thee, which the Most High thy Yahweh shall choose to set his name there. When the Most High thy Yahweh has blessed thee, then shalt thou turn it to money.
Then thou shalt do what?
Turn it into money.
Go ahead.
And bind up the money in thine hand.
And do what with it?
And shall go into the place which the Most High thy Yahweh shall choose.
Jerusalem. And then when you get to Jerusalem, what are you doing with that money? Are you giving it to the priesthood? What are you doing with it?
And thou shalt bestow that money for whatsoever thou soul lustest after.
Go ahead.
For oxen, or for sheep, or for wine.
So, to make it short, the journey was too long. You got money because you was able to bind it up, put it in the bag, and keep it securely. And then ultimately, when you got to Jerusalem, you would buy back those tithes and give the priesthood theirs, and then you would take yours and then be able to eat of it for the feast. So in saying that, the House of Wisdom is the only group that I know of. If there's any other group out there that's doing it, I don't know about it. That know what to do with the tithes. The priests get the oil, we get the flour, we get the wine, we get all of these things that are pertaining to tithes, and we actually offer them up to the Most High in an oblation, which is called, well, some people may call it a prayer, but it's an oblation because it's a conglomerate of prayers, oil, baptism, drinking wine, the bread. It's the whole shebang. Giving up trespass and sin offerings. Who else is doing that?
Nobody.
So we have the tithes that are here. And all the tithes were done and worked with and procured by the hands of the priesthood. None of it is coming from outside. We've done that before, and we realized that we need to be accountable for the congregation to make sure that the congregation is safe. So the Holy Spirit guided us to create the tithes. And we have those here. And know if you order the tithes, you can order the tithes for the priesthood, and we'll give it up on your behalf. Or you can actually buy the tithes and eat of and use the same thing that the priesthood are using. So like I said, we have wine, we have flour, we have 2 different batches. We have, I would say, the summer season batch, which is a lighter seasoning, and then a heavier seasoning during the winter season. But nonetheless, we have the wine, we have incense, we have what else? Himalayan salt, black salt,
frankincense,
all the above. And you're probably seeing it online now, where you can go to the city of Adam and order these things and use them for yourself.
All right. So next we have Messianic Faith. This book here has been in production for 2 decades, 20 years. So that lets you know that this isn't something recent. To me, this is one that I always say you got to put a major on minor things. A lot of times we overlook things and we overlook the major things. This is major. Faith is major. Again, I say in the scriptures, it says faith is a special gift. Now, if you look according to the world, faith is just blind belief. You can just get faith anytime, that you think that you want to have faith. But this book focuses on Hebrews 11:1 to give you the true understanding what faith is. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And when you get that evidence, you have the evidence that the Most High Abba Yahweh exists. Abba Yahweh doesn't reveal himself to everyone. That's a misnomer. That's a myth that Christianity teaches. You got to seek after the Most High, and when he's ready to reveal himself unto you, he will. And he's going to give you the faith that you need. This book is powerful. Hebrews 11 talks about that if you want to please the Most High, you have to have faith. And I tend to believe, I give the benefit of the doubt for those that are watching this and will sit through a class, that you have a heart to want to please the Most High, right? But in order to do so, we got to stick according to Scripture. You have to have faith. So get your book to get the understanding on faith is. This will give you the knowledge and understanding. And as the scripture says, don't hear only, but be a doer. And so with that, get your book of Messianic Faith. We don't have too many copies left. They found the cache a while ago. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but this supply will run out soon, so get your copy. This is a great book to have, a great reference book, foundational. Now the super chat. The super chat is for the streaming.
The super chat is for those that are not a part of the city of Adam and want to be able to contribute and donate. That is for you. Those that are a part of the city of Adam, we have a way to be able to do those things. So the super chat is for you guys. I would say use it, utilize it, and may the Most High, in the name of Yahweh, bless you for those things that you're doing in support of the House of Wisdom.
And then lastly, like, share, and subscribe. You know, we live in a social media world now. And, you know, we want the word to go out. So if you're watching this on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, like, share, and subscribe to get the word out, because the new covenant is here. The kingdom of the Most High Yahweh is here, and the priesthood is bringing forth this powerful information.
Yeah, we're not waiting for it.
No.
It's here.
It's here. So like, share, and subscribe. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and move into, or get into the main class today. Beginning with a review. A lot has been covered since we started this series. And again, this is a groundbreaking series. Who else have you heard break down the vision that Nebuchadnezzar had of the statue with the detail that the priesthood is bringing out by way of Malak Kaham Banyala? Wisdom has given us a word and a thing. You've never heard this. All you say, oh, it's a statue. It has a gold head, silver body. You know, it got a girdle of brass, legs of iron, feet of clay. That's it, right? They may touch on the different kingdoms that it represents, but we're going to do a review today, and we want to make it a little interactive as well. So, since I brought it out, we're going to speak about Nebuchadnezzar's dream real quick. We've gone over this through all the, you can look at the previous classes. But Nebuchadnezzar had a dream. He saw a thing. And none of his magi's or sorcerers could figure out what he was thinking. They said, go get Daniel. Daniel will give you the interpretation thereof. And so Daniel brought the understanding of what the dream meant. And so he saw a statue. If the engineer could bring up that image of the statue, if you can. The statue had a head of gold. And he said, Nebuchadnezzar, this is your kingdom. This empire is at the head of this statue, right? Then he saw the breast, or the body of silver, which included the two arms, right? And so we brought that out. The two arms is the Medes and the Persians. They were together. They worked together. And so that was the body of silver. Then we get down to the girdle of brass, right? So this is the Greeks. And then we move on to the legs of iron, which were the Romans. Now, it was brought out in the class that these two legs represented the thing. We know that if you listen to the prior classes, these legs are the two parts of the Roman Empire, the East and the West. And then at the feet, you have the 10 Romance kingdoms that are of clay. They don't mix with the iron. They're not unified, but they're all vying for position and power to rule, right? So that is the understanding. So the quiz that we're going to give now, for the audience and those who are online and the streaming, what didn't Daniel see?
Good question.
Right? In his vision, what didn't he see? For those in the audience that want to take a stab at it, what didn't Daniel see? We have a microphone. Let's bring it out.
A quick mic? Yeah. Let's bring it out. I don't see no hands going up.
And I should give him a hint. I didn't mention it.
Let's just pick on people. Let's just pick somebody. We got Aaron got his hand
we got
up.
a brave soul.
We got a brave soul.
There we go.
Shalom.
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 I don't believe he saw the kingdoms before Babylon in the vision.
Which kingdoms was that?
That's the next question. Yeah, here you go.
Mesopotamia, Egypt, Assyria. I think
That's
only 3. There you go.
That's it. That's it.
Okay.
You're right on point.
Powerful. So Daniel, from his vantage point and the time that he was living in, could only see the kingdom that he was involved with and the future kingdoms. Now we're going to go over Revelations. If you would, Priest Gabar, we'll get Revelations 13 and we'll hold verse 1.
Gone.
So John the Revelator, he saw the same thing that Daniel did, but his vision was greater. He saw the beginning, middle, and end of things. We're going to go through that real quick again. Salakia, priest. We'll go with Revelations 13. So he saw the full picture, right? He saw all the kingdoms from the beginning to the end. And so we'll get into it now. Again, here we're just going to give a brief review for the new viewers that are watching, and then also for those that have been following this series. But when you have a priest, we'll begin to read.
Revelations, the 13th chapter and the first verse. And I stood upon the sands of the seas and saw a beast rise out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon the head of the same the name of blasphemy.
All right, so the understanding with this, going through it quickly, Paul the Revelator, again, was the one that was seeing this vision in the spirit. He saw a beast. This beast represents the earthly manifestation of the dragon. The water, the sea that he's coming out of is the nation. So these were kingdoms that were coming out of the nations to rule and oppress the children of Israel. And this name of blasphemy that he's talking about is the accusations. We talked about in the previous classes that, physical things are used against us to harm us, but it all begins in the spirit. They use enchantment. They use the dark arts of Balaam and Balak to oppress and to keep the children of Israel in captivity. So this is what this name of blasphemy is. He's giving them understanding on how to do this. But we'll continue reading.
The second verse. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave his power and his seat and great authority.
So here we said that Daniel saw the same thing that John did, right? So in the prophecies that Daniel gave, he said the exact same thing. Daniel saw a leopard, a lion, and a bear. And this seat of power and great authority, again, this is the knowledge and understanding on how to accuse the saints. They understood the mystery of iniquity, and they use it to maintain power and control over the children of Israel. But we'll continue reading.
And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast.
So here what we were talking about, the understanding that came out, I just mentioned. So the legs of iron represent the Roman Empire. And this is what it's speaking of. The wounded head, we saw that the Western Empire fell, but the East still stood. So this is what it was talking about, that Western Empire was damaged, but it was revived and it came back. But we'll continue reading.
The fourth verse. And they worshiped the dragon, which gave power unto the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, and who is able to make war with him?
All right, so here's another quiz or a question. When they say worship the dragon, what do they mean? From a Hebraic perspective, you put your Hebrew lens on, right? I'll just give it for the sake of time. They were sacrificing unto the dragon. This is true worship. Worship is not singing songs and dancing. See, in Christianity, they conflate the two. Worship is not praise. Worship throughout Scripture is a sacrifice. A sacrifice has to be given in order to worship. And so this is what it's talking about. These nations are sacrificing to the dragon. And the dragon in return is giving them the power to oppress the children of Israel. But we'll continue reading in verse 5.
And there was given unto him a mouth to speak great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months.
So again here, this speaking of great things and blasphemies has to do with the accusation against the saints, right? And so this 40 and 2 months represents the 3.5 years of the remainder of Adam's curse. We talk about it all the time. There was 2 curses given in the beginning when Adam fell. You had the 1,500 years of the ground. That curse was resolved with Adam, the birth of Adam after the flood, and then you had the remaining of the 5,500 years. So half of that, when you combine the two, the 5,500 years with 1,500, that makes 7,000 years. Half of that is 3.5 years. So the remaining 3.5 years, the dragon gave the beast power to accuse the saints, to curse the remnant of Adam. But we'll continue reading.
So that's not a literal 3.5 years.
Right. That's
3,500 years. This is why when they start going into prophecies about the 7-year tribulation, they have no clue, no idea. I've heard the breakdowns already. They're all wrong and they're off. So go back to the series, watch them. You'll be definitely enlightened. So the 6th verse, and he opened his mouth in blasphemy against Abba Yahweh, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle and them that dwelled in heaven.
So we mention all the time that this blasphemy is the accusation against the saints. They're going to the courts of the Most High to say, hey, Gabario was working on the Shabbat. That's breaking the statute. It says you shall do no servile work on this day. But it's because of the captivity and we work, right? So Satan can make accusation against you to do a thing. So this is what they're learning to do against the saints. And they're doing it constantly. We've brought out, proof and evidence of this in many of our classes. But to get more information on what's being performed here, a lot of Israel doesn't, in my view, they skim over what took place in Numbers. It's very important to understand what Balaam and Balak were doing. Now, under Priest Yardan in his class, Kahan Gabario had went over in his class, but we're going to bring this out because I think it's important, especially for this class, to see this information here. Hakam, if you would, read Numbers 25, and we'll start in verse 1. So here we're going to the book of Numbers, right? And to give some context and some background, Balaam was employed by Balak to curse Israel. Balaam told him, look, we can't curse Israel if they're in good standing with the Most High. When Abba Yahweh is with them, there's nothing that you can do. But we'll pick it up there, if you would. Hakam, let's read verse 1.
And Israel abode in Shittim, and the people began to commit whoredom with the daughters of Moab. And they called the people unto the sacrifices of their gods, and the people did eat and bowed down to their gods.
All right, so here, Balaam came out and said, hey, look, I know how to get them to trespass. I'm going to get these fine, beautiful women in Moab to send them into the camp of Israel and to entice them to do a thing. So these women come into camp. They did their thing. The men said, yo, we want to lay with you. We want to get with you. He's like, that's fine. We can do that. But look, you're going to have to sacrifice to our deities before we do that. That is a grave trespass, a major trespass, because it's idolatry. This is what fornication is, when you sacrifice to another god. He said it's the beginning of the corruption of all life in the book of Wisdom of Solomon.
Yeah, can I add to that? So all of this is because Israel came out of Egypt. Moab was afraid of them. They wanted Balak to come and curse them to get rid of them. And Balak went and gave up an oblation, and the Most High showed him, listen, you can't curse a nation that's already blessed. And you can't curse them because there's no iniquity found in them. This is important to understand. And I just don't think that a lot of Israelites understand this. So he said, okay, we can't do nothing with them because there's no iniquity. What that means is they was keeping the law, statutes, and commandments under their covenant. So he said, if we can get them to veer off from that covenant, we got them. We can get them. So if I could just read this real quick.
Yes, sir. Yep.
This is in Sirach, because this is years after. And it's telling to me, because it's showing anybody who's paying attention that what's going on with Balak and Balaam is absolutely 100% on point. So this is Sirach 49. We're going to read 1 through 5, and I'm going to read it real quick through this.
Okay, come on.
It says, the remembrance of Josiah is like the composition of the perfume that is made by the art of the apothecary. It is sweet as honey in the mouth and as music at a banquet of wine. So Josiah was a great king. So he says, he behaved himself uprightly in the conversation of the people and took away. Josiah took away the abomination of iniquity. When he came into rulership, his pops was wicked. So he said, nah, we found the book of the law. We're going to keep the law, statutes, and commandments according to what Moses gave us. So he turned them from bowing down to other gods and worshiping other gods back to the Heavenly Father. So he says, he directed his heart unto the Most High, and in the time of the ungodly, he established the worship of the Most High. It says, all except David, Hezekiah, and Josiah were defective. Out of all the 20-something kings, only three were not defective. And here comes the point. It says, for they forsook the law of the Most High, even the kings of Judah fell. It's telling you all the kings fell except those three. Therefore, in return, the Most High gave their power unto others and their glory unto a strange nation. Why did I bring that up? It tells you, right, in Numbers what Balaam did. And it's also showing you, when you keeping the commandments of the Most High is going to give you your power back. The covenant that you was given. But when you break the covenant, he takes that power from you and he gives it over to the other nations. This is why Balaam said, if we can get them to transgress the laws of the Most High, we got them. This is the rules of engagement. Paul speaks about it, that the strength of sin is the law. What does that mean? If you break the law, sin gets that strength and that power to take over you. So Balaam understood that. We don't understand that. And when you begin to understand that, it should propel you to want to keep these commandments to get your power back. If you're not in covenant with the Most High and you're not keeping his law, statutes, and commandments under the seventh covenant, you have no power. And the Most High is not even looking at you. When Christ came on the scene, how many different sects of Israelites were there? I'm waiting. There were many. And what did he say? I am the way, the truth, and the life. You cannot get to the Father unless you come to me. So all this talk about, well, there's many ways to get to Abba, it's a lie. Yahweh Shai didn't say that. So in order for us to get our strength and power back, we got to come back under the covenant and keep those commandments. Point blank, period. And this guy, Balaam, taught the other nations how to keep us in captivity. And it's still going on to this day. So go ahead, priest.
And this is very important to know and understand as we go forth in this class, because we're going to show this later in this class, this very thing here, the condition that our people are in, and we have a strong reference to show you that our people knew why they were in the position they were in. It's not happenstance. They absolutely knew why they were in the position they were in. So keep that in mind. The reason why we're going through this again is so we can see, as I mentioned in the beginning, that they're fighting against us spiritually. It's just not physical. The spiritual thing is the most important part, and these are how the 10 Romance kingdoms are going to maintain their control over Israel by performing these dark arts.
That's why Paul said we fight not against flesh and blood, but spiritual wickedness in high places. We are at war.
Physical weaponry won't do anything. Zero. But we'll go more into that. I'll just we'll kind of skip through most of this. So as the story goes, one of the Israelites brought one of the women into the camp, which is crazy. Right in front of the tabernacle, where the priests were convening and everything, went into a tent to do his thing. Phineas rose up and destroyed them, killed them, and Abba Yahweh was pleased. He was pleased so much so that he made the line of the high priest to go through Phineas and no longer through Eleazar. So, but again, keep this in mind. This is very important as we talk about this next horn in this class today. So with that being said, this next class, as you see on the thumbnail, we're going to talk about the seventh horn, which is France. And so there's a lot of information about France, right? So this is not a history class. But what we're doing is we're pointing out the salient points in this timeline, in France's timeline, to show you how this horn came to power, how Hasatan, like Kahan Gabaria said, these motions of sin work with certain individuals to bring this horn to power, right? If you would, Hakam, hold that the part on the Pope. And so, in order to see this next horn, the information that we're about to get into is with the France. Well, excuse me. The starting point is going to be where the Western Roman Empire fell. We're going to start at that point. And again, the information that we're going to go through is talking about monarchies, kingdoms, feudal systems. And so we're going to do our best to bring out this understanding and show you the development of this new horn. So where we're at now, again, we're going to focus on key characters. And to understand what we're about to go through now, we got to understand a couple of things. So the Western Roman, the Roman Empire was divided into two parts. And if I can get the engineer just to bring up the image of the Western Roman Empire and the Eastern Roman Empire. To understand where we're going next, we got to understand the role of the Pope and the role of the Roman Emperor. At this time, the Western Roman Empire was down. And as Kahan Yardan brought out in this class, the Byzantine Empire, which is labeled the east side of the Roman Empire, was still in power. But it was the west side that was down. They lost a little bit of their power, but they were still going strong. So before we begin, if you would, Hakam, excuse me, let's read with the Pope. So this is the purpose of the Pope. And the holy, it's not so holy, I shouldn't say that, the Roman Catholic Church. This is his role. And then when you have it, read it.
The Pope is the Bishop of Rome and the supreme leader of the worldwide Catholic Church, serving as a spiritual father to over 1 billion Catholics. He is considered the successor to St. Peter. His primary responsibilities include maintaining church unity, defining doctrine, appointing bishops, and acting as the head of the Vatican city-state.
All right, so some of this, in ancient times or the times that we're going to cover, the Pope did this. These are all the things that he did. Now, let's look at some of the core responsibilities before I go there. Let's read where it says Supreme Pastor and Teacher.
The Pope provides moral and spiritual guidance to the universal church through official documents like encyclicals and apostolic letters. He addresses both matters of faith and pressing global issues. Vicar of Christ. Catholics believe that the Pope is the physical representation of Jesus Christ on earth, entrusted with the keys of the kingdom of heaven to bind and loose sin and establish church teachings.
All right, now when we look at this should play into what we just read. They understand the keys of the kingdom, right? They know how to accuse. In that story with Balaam and Balak, he had to give the right sacrifice to get the attention of Abba Yahweh.
For sure.
He wasn't sacrificing the chicken and doing all this. No, he said he created 7 altars. He got 7 clean animals, sacrificed them in front of Balaam, and was in a trance speaking with the Elohim. So what he did was effectual. They know how to do this.
Yeah.
And this is what this is talking about when you read between the lines. When you understand, they understand the dark arts. Let's go down to where it says Supreme Legislator.
According to the Catholic canon law, the Pope holds supreme full and universal power, allowing him to promulgate laws and establish guidelines that govern the entire church.
So what he says goes. He said he's a representation of Yahweh on the earth. So if he creates a law, it can't be broken. You must follow that law because he's representing Christ in the earth. That's what that title of Vicar of Christ. So this is important. Stick with me because we have to understand this. When the Western Roman Empire fell, this governance fell with it. So this region was destabilized. They didn't have the church there. They didn't have the governing bodies. They didn't have the military. And that's what we're going to get into now. If you would, Hakam, let's read what the Roman emperor, what his role was. And before he reads that, so in the Western and Eastern Empire, they had two emperors. There was an emperor that governed the Western Empire, and there was an emperor that governed the eastern part of the empire. Reason being, I think it was Diocletian, who was one of the emperors at the time in Rome, said it's too much for one man to govern all this landmass. For those that were looking at the film back there, when you look at the dominion that the Romans had, the land was extensive. Not one man could rule that. So they had two emperors. But let's read and see what the role of the emperor was.
Roman emperors held absolute power and were responsible for the survival, expansion, and administration of the vast Roman Empire. Their core responsibilities spanned 5 main areas: military command, political and legal leadership, financial and public infrastructure, management, religious authority, and maintaining public orders.
All right, then we'll stop there. So here, the Roman emperor was the military arm. The Pope ain't going out there to fight.
Right.
He has an army to fight for him. So when you look at the Western Roman Empire, it had no military. And why this is so important, Rome was the capital. Rome, the capital, where the Vatican is in the Western Roman Empire. So you had all of these states above it that could invade the Vatican. He had no military might there. This is why this is important. And I want you to focus on this because this will be the formation of the horn that we're going to go about today. This is a major part of it. If you would, Hakam, let's go down to where it says Roman pedigree. So now with this kingdom and this horn that we're going to talk about, we have to prove a thing. We have to prove that this horn has Roman pedigree. It is a part of the Roman state. If it's not, it can't be one of the 10 toes. Right. Because the toes is connected to the Western and Eastern Roman Empire. So we have to prove that. And that's what we're about to do. We're going to prove that.
And it mentions that the feet, not the legs, but the feet were part iron and part clay. So the part iron is coming from the iron legs of Roman Empire. So they're showing that all of these are connected to the Roman Empire in some form or fashion.
So here we're going to show the connection to Rome. This is what this section is about. And we're going to prove the Roman pedigree that France was truly one of the 10 Romance kingdoms or a horn. When you have it under Roman pedigree, let's read that, Hakam.
After the collapse of the Western Roman Empire in 476 AD, the Eastern Roman Empire outlived the West for 1,000 years.
So this is what I was mentioning earlier. So the West, after this time, they lived on for another 1,000 years. The Western Roman Empire only stood for 90 years before it fell. So let's look at the region. If the engineer could bring up the image of where it says Celtic Gallia, the Roman Republic. And so pulling up this image here, we just want to show you, one, how vast this land is of the Western Roman Empire. Where you see right there in the green, it says Gallia or Gaul. We're going to read what that's about. So these lands that you see here now, when the Western Roman Empire fell, again, it was destabilized. They didn't have any ruling form of government. You had, like I said, it was feudal. You had these monarchies and kingdoms that were all vying for power and position to rule this land. right? But let's take a look at who inhabited this land. Again, these people that were in these lands were populated by Romans. So the language was still there, the customs and the traditions were still there, but the government wasn't there. So if you're looking at this image in this green here, this is what we're going to be focused on. Gallia or Gaul. And when you have it, Hakam, let's read what Gaul means. The text. Where it says before it became France.
All right, before it became France, the land was known as Gaul. It was populated primarily by Celtic tribes called the Gauls.
All right, so we'll hold there. So this land they had different groups there, but those that inhabited the lands it was mostly made up of the Celtic tribes. We'll continue reading.
After Julius Caesar conquered the territory in the 50 BC.
Now this is during the time of Christ, right? This is 50 years before he had passed. So right now, just to give you a timeline, Julius Caesar conquered these lands, and he called these people Gauls. We'll go ahead and read it.
It became part of the Roman Empire, blending Roman customs with the Celtic roots to create a distinct Gallo-Roman culture.
So as the Romans did, as we can see now in the society that we live in, they're very tolerant of different points of view. As long as you can be American along with what you're doing, we good. So this is what was being done in the Roman customs. They tied their custom to the Celtics. They were called the Gauls. And as we saw in the image, Gallia, that large image there, which makes up, we'll look at some present day maps of France, you'll see that that's going to make up the French kingdom. But we'll continue reading. Let's look at what Gaul means.
Gaul was comprised of multi-ethnic complex of territories ruled by various kings and feudal lords. From the time of Caesar to the fall of the Western Empire, the majority of the Gaul integrated into the Roman Empire.
Okay. So we hear it. So again, they integrated with the Roman Empire. So we got to establish this in order to see this next horn rise. Right? So let's read the next thing because this is important. We'll read the next paragraph.
Now that the Western Empire had fallen and regions was destabilized, other ruling factions, aka barbarians, began to raid Galilee to take dominion of the land.
So any of you who watch medieval stuff, feudal stuff, you can see that they were bent on war. They were bent on power. They were bent on wealth. Right? And so as you saw in the image, this is a large swath of land. There's it's ripe for the taking. Right. The Roman Empire has fallen. As we talked about in other classes, the Romans were known for their military might. And so for the Western Roman Empire to fall to some of these inhabitants, these dudes was wicked. They was getting medieval with it. So they knew how to fight. But I want us to pay attention to barbarians here because I think this is important to the class. Now, when we talk about barbarians in modern day language, we talk about, you're a savage.
Yeah.
You're a brute, But the etymology of barbarian has a very different meaning, and we're going to read what that meaning is.
A barbarian is, etymologically, a foreigner.
A foreigner. Right?
Almost
Not
like
a
an
savage,
alien.
A foreigner. Right? So if you bring that to present day times, if, the ones that they call illegal aliens, they would call them barbarians. These people that they're bringing in, the refugees, these are barbarians. And why would they call them barbarians? Let's read more about that.
Specifically, someone whose language and customs differ from those of the speaker.
So their customs and language different from the speaker. Now, we've been talking about slaves, right? The slave trade and the slaves that they were bringing from Africa. And I believe we went over a little bit, but they looked at us as barbarians because we didn't have their language and their customs. Now, modern day times, they meant more of a savage. They meant that you were less than us, that you were inhumane. But again, if your language and customs were different, you were considered a barbarian. Let's continue to read.
In ancient Greece, the term designated non-Greeks while in the Roman world, it referred more generally to people living outside the cultural and political sphere of the empire.
So again, those living outside the Roman Empire, you was a barbarian because your customs and your language wasn't the same, and that's how they viewed you. But we'll go down now here. We'll move on to who conquered the Gauls, right? So we're kind of fast forwarding. Like I said, there's a lot of information. We don't want to bore you with history, but we do want to show you the formation of this horn. So this region was destabilized. They had no governing body. You had different feudal kingdoms and lords vying to conquer this land, to be the head, right? And as we talked about, the Western Roman Empire, as we went, and we'll go up, we'll speak on it a little bit here. If you would, Congabar, if we go back to the top of your document, Revelations 13 and 3.
Mm-hmm.
The Roman Empire was wounded because it had half of its strength. When you have that, priest, let's read that.
Revelations 13 and 3. And I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast.
So this is what we're going over now. The Western Roman Empire fell. This is emblematic of this head being wounded. And we're going to see how it was revived. So this plays right along with the prophecy.
In Rome was headquarters.
Con.
So therefore I see how they say it was the head was wounded.
Yeah.
You know, so.
And it was wounded because, again, the Pope, they had no defense.
Yeah.
And you'll see this as we go along, how this horn came about to be in power. So going back to what we're saying, the Gaul was, or the Gallo-Roman culture was in effect. The Gauls were ruling these lands. A mighty one rose up to conquer these lands. And that's what we're going to look into now. If you were Congabaria, where it says who conquered Gaul, let's take a look at this. So we're going to look at the mighty one that Hasatan used to begin to conquer this land so that the Roman Empire can be re-strengthened. And when you have a priest, we'll read it.
So it says Germania bordered the east of Gallia.
So Germania is really what we now presently know as Germany. So if we look at the, if I could get the engineer to pull up the Celtic Gallia Roman Republic image again, you'll see here that on the east border of Gallia was Germania. So we had a German king rise up out of the Germanic people to come conquer Gaul. And we'll continue reading so we can see what tribe he belonged to.
So we have Clovis the first, a king from amongst the Germanic people called the Franks, beginning to raid and conquer vast parts of Gallia, Gaul, and begin to expand the Frankish realm into it.
So here, the Germanic people, they had, the tribe or these people called the Franks. You can begin to see where the term France come from, but we're going to get more into that. So we're going to look into a little into Clovis, because Clovis was the one, he was the catalyst to bring about this horn. Without Clovis, there is no resurrection of the Western Roman Empire. So let's look into Clovis. We're going to read in here and see who was Clovis.
Clovis was the first Frankish king to unite the Franks, changing the form of leadership from a group of petty kings to rule by a single king.
So this was revolutionary. Again, we said we had all these feudal lords. Again, there was a lot of petty kings seeking to rule. But he had the understanding, we need to be ruled by one king. Where did he get that information from? Where did these thoughts come from? We talk about Hasatan speaking and using people. Hasatan was working with Clovis and was giving him these ideas that we need to be ruled by a single king. But we'll continue reading.
Let's see. And ensuring that the kingship was passed down to his heirs. He is considered the founder of the Merovingian dynasty.
Yeah, very hard to pronounce.
Yeah. which ruled. Continue.
Yeah, continue.
Which ruled the Frankish kingdom for the next 2 centuries. Clovis and his important figures in history of France. According to Charles de Gaulle, or Gaulle, he was the first king of what would become France.
What will become France? So France right now is not France. It's still Gaul. That's going to change. So here we'll move down to the next section.
Clovis is also significant because of his baptism between 498 and 506, I would suppose, AD, largely at the behest of his wife, Clotilde. That pronounced right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Clotilde, I think.
Who would later be venerated as a saint for this act. Celebrated today in both Catholic Church and Eastern Orthodox Church.
So here, Clovis, in his conquest of these lands, his wife persuaded him, convinced him that he must become Catholic. Right? Now, we had to talk about this here. So, you know, the Catholics throw around this term saint like it's, you know, they make anybody a saint, right? All this woman did was say, hey, you know, love, become a Catholic. And because he did, they made her a saint, right? We all know what a saint is Hebraically. Right? Do you have that scripture all right offhand, priest? You got it? Yeah, when you got it, go ahead and read it.
It's Psalms 50 and 5.
So this is David speaking. Let's get the definition, the true definition of what a saint is.
It says, gather my saints together unto me, those that have made a covenant with me by sacrifice.
So if you're not under covenant and you're not giving these offerings, you're not a saint. And that's what David was saying, and what we say all the time, David is important. He's actually underrated. We did a series on that. Watch that series.
Underrated David, powerful.
Powerful. But David was a king in Israel at the height of Israel. We'll never get to the height that David did in his kingdom and Solomon's kingdom until we get into the great Sabbath rest. So this is our great patriarch, a king, telling us what a saint is. It's not what they talking about. Just want to point that out. Pause for the cause on that. So he adopted Catholicism, which was very important. Again, we want to talk about, this horn raising up. What we have to understand during this time, this relationship between religion and politics. How did the Pope rule over people at that time? You had to be a convert. And once he has your mind and heart, he can rule you. He can influence you more. So you had to be down with the program. And because he was a king that ruled over a vast amount of land, his influence can cause a lot of people to convert to Catholicism, which would submit his power as a pope and also reestablish the western side of the Roman Empire. And so let's read that part highlighted right there, if you would, Hakam.
Clovis led to widespread conversions among the Franks and eventually to religious unification across what is now modern-day France, the Low Countries, and Germany.
Now, this is very important. Like I said, he was key because he converted many Franks. They were into paganistic worship, and now they come to be Roman Catholics. Now, what's interesting is it wasn't just the Franks. Our people were getting involved in this. So when we go over the history, there was Israelites converting to Catholicism, engaging in this idolatry. We saw this in the class over Spain and Portugal, the Inquisitions. They went around Christianizing. See, and I hate the way they use terms, right? Why can't they say, oh, we're going to convert you into Catholicism, right?
Yeah.
You know, people, they conflate the two, but it's not a conflation. Christianity is Roman Catholicism, right? It's just some subset of it, but it's Catholicism. So, but look at that point beneath the highlighted area, if you will, Hakam. When was he baptized?
Clovis was baptized on December 25th.
What's special about the December 25th? More of the nonsense, right? But let's continue on to the next section.
And no, it wasn't Jesus' birthday.
Right.
No, it was not.
Right.
So this Merovingian dynasty start off at that point, if you would have come.
All right. The Merovingians were a hereditary monarchy.
All right, so that means that the kingship stayed in house.
God.
It didn't go outside this family, right? Kind of like, with David. The kings will come out of his line.
God.
It's the same thing here, but we'll continue reading.
The Frankish kings adhered to the practices of partible inheritance, dividing their land among their sons. Even when multiple Merovingian kings ruled, the kingdom, not unlike the late Roman Empire, was conceived of a single realm ruled collectively by several kings. And the turn of events could result in the reunification of the whole realm under a single king. The Merovingian king ruled by divine right, and their kingship was symbolized by their long hair and initially by their acclamation, which was carried out by raising the king on a shield in accordance with the ancient Germanic practice of electing a war leader at an assembly of the warriors.
All right, so all we want to get out of here is the Merovingian dynasty was a hereditary monarchy, and it was through their bloodline that the kings would rule. And in this case, Clovis I was a king over the Franks, right? So let's go to the next part. Yeah, go ahead.
All right, Clovis set the precedence for aligning with the Pope and Roman Catholic Church.
So again, this is very important. He was part of a Germanic tribe. He was a mighty ruler. He was a warrior king. So under the Merovingian dynasty, they were warriors. And the king had to fight. He wasn't one of them that sat on the sideline and said, you do this and you do that. No, he was a warrior. And we're going to see more of that. And this is what the Pope needed. He needed an emperor that knew about war. So this relationship that he had with the Pope, this is what set the precedent for things to come with this dynasty. And we'll continue reading.
And this gave more political power to the church to implement their agenda to reunite the Western Roman Empire.
So this is the goal. This is Hasatan. We got to keep that in mind. In order for the Western Roman Empire to have the strength, it needs the Western side. It can't just rule with the Eastern side. And so Hasatan, again, you can see that he's getting behind certain individuals, raising them to power so he can accomplish his goal. So next here, we'll go down, we'll read, so there's going to be a rise of a new bloodline. I'll just go ahead and, here, Clovis passed away in this dynasty. So these kings don't live forever. And as we talked about, this heritable inheritance where they pass down, the kingdom to their sons, he did that. And their sons squandered everything. And we're going to see what happened due to that. Now, because of that, Hasatan was like, no, we can't use these brothers. We need to find somebody else that's going to serve our cause. So now we move into the next important figure, which is Charlemagne. And anybody that knows history knows the importance of Charlemagne, and he represented a different dynasty. If I can get the engineer to pull up the next image. All right, so here you look at now look at how vast this empire is in the green, the dark green. This is a lot of land. This is why they said we need an emperor on this side to run it, because you have all these multi-ethnic groups that have different religions, different mindset, and all of that has to be governed. And so what Clovis did, he did that. He united the Franks to a degree, but under this Carolingian empire, he's going to advance what Clovis did. And if you would, Khan Gabaria, let's look. We're going to look now at the transition between these different dynasties, because we have to show this transition, and a certain thing came about with this transition. So where it says on that page 9, priest, the transition from the Merovingian to the Carolingian dynasty.
Where it's out, according to the Zuckerman.
No, below that.
What was that again?
On page 9.
Let's see, 8, 9. Oh, and where we're starting at? The transition?
Con.
All right, the transition from the Merovingian to the Carolingian dynasty was a gradual process of political usurpation.
Yep, usurpation.
That culminated in the 751 CE when a powerful household official named Pepin the Short officially disposed the last Moravian king with the backing of the Pope.
So Pepin is important here, and he was a part of what they call the mayor of the palace. He was part of that royal court. And when you watch these movies, when they talk about the Tudors and all this stuff, I know, they always talk about the drama of it, the politics, the undercutting to position themselves for power. And this is what Pepin did to take power. And if you go down to point number 3, priest, let's read right here where it talks more about this usurpation of the Merovingian dynasty.
So it's number 3 here. It says the coup of 751 and the papal approval. By 751 CE, Charles Martel's son, Pippin the Short, Pippin III, decided to seize the royal title for himself to legitimize the overthrow of the traditional Moravian bloodline. Pippin appeased the papacy in Rome.
All right, so Pepin the Short went to the Pope and said, look, this dude is going off. Their sons are going off. They're not unifying the kingdom. Actually, they had, and I forgot to put it in here, but the people in the land called the sons that were ruling at that time do-nothing kings. They weren't advancing the kingdom. They just want to live lavish, and live off the spoils, but they were doing nothing to advance the kingdom. Now we can see how Satan stepped into Pepin and Short and is like, look, we need new leadership. We need new rulership.
Crying out to the Pope.
Crying out to the Pope because he knew where the power was. Although they didn't have an emperor at that time, the Pope still had power. And so he went to the Pope to get this power, and he said, I should be the one to sit in a seat where Clovis was sitting. And so the Pope gave him that power. And by that, he did a thing. I'm going to kind of go through this because, like I said, we don't want to bore you with the history. He laid the foundation for his son, Charlemagne, to rule. Now, before we get there, we found out some very interesting things during that time period where Pepin was talking to the Pope. So we're going to get some more detailed information that took place there. And priest, if you can go down to where it says, according to Zuckerman, we want to look at this. So this historian wrote a book about a particular thing, about this account, and it's very telling. So here also we have to show where the Khazars, or Cuddy as we call them, the Penguins, had their influence, how they were aligning themselves with the kings so they can get their agenda across. When you have a priest, we'll begin reading.
According to Zuckerman's thesis, presented in the book, a vassal Jewish princedom was established in Narbonne, Septimia, by the Carolingian king Pepin as a reward for Jewish cooperation in the Frankish conquest in the city in 759 CE from Muslim al-Andalus.
All right, so we'll hold here. So, and then go down so we can see what happened here. So when he usurped power from the Merovingian king, there started to be accusation. It's like, oh, they got their power underhandedly, right? Let's read the next section down where it says the Carolingians and the Davidic line.
The Carolingians were sensitive to accusations of the usurpation of the crown through conquest from the Merovingians.
So they's like, you didn't do this righteously. You just took the kingship from this bloodline, and this bothered them. So at this point, Charlemagne is ruling in this particular passage. And so what you want to pay attention to is the Davidic line. So what we're looking at here, he's like using the Davidic line to justify usurping power from the Merovingians. Charlemagne, Pepin, they were very religious. They were super Christian or super Catholic. But we'll continue reading that next part, secession.
Secession to the biblical David would be a claim of divine sanction to rule, as it would legitimize their royal power. It is documented that the Charlemagne occasionally called himself by the name of David.
Listen to that. This man was calling himself David, and he was a Frank. He wasn't, I mean, he comes from a Frankish background. He doesn't even come from the cloth of Jacob, and referring himself to David. He's nothing like David. But we'll continue reading.
However, Charlemagne's own thinking of being the successor for biblical kings of the Jewish people required a governance over the Jews and at least nominal control over Jerusalem, creating a vassal Jewish princedom, intermarrying with his Davidic line, and building a strategic alliance with the Abbasid Caliphate.
All right. So we're going to go back to the top now. Stay with us, because the Khazars did certain things. So what we're bringing out here is that these Jews helped Pippin usurp the throne, right? And their justification for doing this, as it read here, is that, look, if I'm doing this for the Jews, I'm a part of that line of David, and, by right, scripturally, I can do this. But we'll continue reading here. Begin from the top with according to Zuckerman's thesis.
I wanted to say, too, again, the Jews perpetuating lies, because they know he's not from the seed of David, but they're helping to perpetuate the lies. And where did you want me to go?
We'll start at the top from according to Zuckerman's thesis.
According to Zuckerman's thesis, presented in the book, a vassal Jewish princedom was established in Narbonne, Septimia, by the Carolingian King Pepin as a reward for Jewish cooperation in the Frankish conquest in the city in 759 CE from Muslim al-Andalus. The dynasty of the Jewish ruler was...
Now look at that, Jewish rulers, the dynasty. So this deals, again, hereditary, family of Jewish rulers.
Was later also confirmed by Pippin's son, Charlemagne, and endowed with significant lands and privileges.
All right, so because in employing the Jews to go about usurping the throne of the Merovingians, getting the Jews help, for a reward, they gave them the kingdom of Narbonne. They gave the Jews that city of Narbonne. Now, this is important because this is going to lend itself to other things. And I don't think I had it in the document. Give me just a moment to pull that up. So we have another figure here that we want to read about that's in Narbonne. And I'll get it here, actually. So in Narbonne, we want to look at the city. So Pepin, for compensation of employing the Jews to usurp the throne, they gave the Jews Narbonne. He gave them the lands in Narbonne. And we want to right here look at David Kimhi. Let me put that in there. I'm going to have you read it, Hakam. If you go down to I'll bring it up to the top of the document. Got it? Yes, already there. Okay, I got, I'm going to put it at the top. So where it was, you'll see it. So if we go back to the top, the Carolingian and Davidic line, right underneath that. Going down.
Wikipedia.org.
Yeah, that one right there. So this is out of Wikipedia. We want to look at this David Kimhi, where he was from.
All right, we got David Kimchi, also known by the Hebrew acronym Radak. Rabbi David Kimchi was a medieval rabbi, biblical commentator, philosopher, and a grammarian.
So he was a grammarian, a rabbi of the Jewish faith. What do you say about
grammarian?
Grammarian, yeah. So what do you say about the Jewish? I like how you break that down.
Yeah, well, Jewish, right? We all know in English, ISH is pertaining to the suffix. So it's not really brown, but it's a brownish, right? It's not really green, but it's green. It's just pertaining to. So that ISH at the end of Jewish is, they're not the Jews, but they're pertaining to the Jews. They're pertaining, or they're trying to be like the Jews. So they're really not brown, they're brownish. They're ish.
So this is who they are, and they're remaining in these lands. They're not one of the people that got expelled that we talked about earlier. So we know that their position. If you would, Hakam, let's move down to the next section, the early life.
Kimchi was born in Narbonne.
Narbonne. This is the land that Pepin gave to the Jews, right? This is where he grew up. We'll continue reading.
A city in province Occitania. Then under the rule of Philip II of France, he was the youngest son of Rabbi Joseph Kimchi and the brother of Moses Kimchi, both also biblical commentators and grammarians.
So pay close to that, to grammarians, right? This is the key. Now, this is very important. So the Khazars, or fake Jews, knew what they were doing. They were given land. They had control in this land, and they will go about doing a thing that lasts now till now.
Yeah.
Their influence based on what took place here is in a full effect right now. We'll go down to where it says rabbinic career and scholarship. So David Kimchi grew up. He learned this craft of being a biblical commentator and a grammarian from his older brothers and his father. Let's look at his career. What is he noted for?
Kimchi saw himself primarily as a compiler and a summarizer. As a noted Hebrew grammarian, his book, Michael, and his dictionary of the Hebrew language called the Sefer, the Book of Roots, draws heavily on the earlier works of Judah ben David and Jonah, as well as from the works of his father. These two books were originally written as one, although over the years they have come to be printed separately. This book, while based on his predecessors, shows a significant amount of innovation, stakes out new territory in his scholarly fields, and from the methodological point of view is superior to what came before. For example, in Michael, Kimchi expounds on his predecessors' opinions in a clear, straightforward way with the comprehensive approach to the Hebrew structure. The Sefer highlights his talents as a writer because of its logical organization, particularly the way he bases his definitions upon etymology and comparisons between languages.
All right, so here is the kicker right here. This is, read that next verse.
Another of Kimchi's works, Et Sofer, was a sort of a broad version of Michael and acted as a manual for biblical scribes.
A manual for biblical scholars. Let's continue reading.
This was a necessary compilation of rules for the writing of Bible rolls.
The writing of Bible rolls. Let's continue.
Masoretic notes
Masoretic notes.
and accents.
All right, we'll stop there. So what he's saying is that modern Hebrew started with him. He's the one that set the rules for this modern language we speak now, or the modern language they speak with the Hebrew. So where it talks about the Masoretic notes, when he talks about the Bible rolls, these accents that they're placing on a word, and we'll get an example. Priest, if you would, if you could hold right there where it says Isaiah 61:10.
Oh.
We'll hold that.
Got you.
So you'll know if you look at a lexicon, those that study the scriptures, and you look at the Hebrew language, you'll see these little dots over the Hebrew glyph or the character. And that dot can change the meaning of a word, right? And so we're going to take a look at an example of that. This is the father of that. This is the one who put that in effect. And so we're going to take a look at it now, just using a quick example. We'll go to Isaiah 61:10, and we'll begin reading that when you have it, priest.
I will greatly rejoice in Abba Yahweh. My soul shall be joyful unto my power, for he has clothed me with the garment of salvation. He has covered me with the robe of righteousness, as a bridegroom decketh.
Okay, so we'll hold there. And that Hebrew, that word decketh here is Hebrew H3547. And I don't know if you're able to pull that up, priest. I didn't actually put that in the document.
Hold on a second.
Or Hakam, if you could pull that up. What is Hebrew H3547?
That word is kahan.
Kahan.
Ain't
What does kahan mean?
Wow.
It means priest.
Khan.
But look at how he skewed that. And we see this all over Scripture. I mean, Malak Kahan shows the imperfections, the mistranslations
All the time.
that are purposeful in Scripture. But here it says, as a bridegroom decketh. They want to make it seem like it's a piece of clothing or adornment, but it's talking about the priest. Why don't they put priest in there? Because they're hiding this information from you to skew your understanding, so you can't have the power to topple their rule.
And
That's
it's
what it
just
comes
one
down to.
diacritic point that's over these characters. The same character as priest, but that little diacritic point changes the whole meaning of it. From priest to now decketh, dress. There's some deception going on there.
Heavy deception. I mean, one that comes to mind, we talk about the Garden of Eden, right? When they went through the breakdown of that, that's a defense city.
Gone.
Who would ever think that the Garden of Eden was a defense city? Because the way they have it now, you think that it's some plush botanical garden. Adam and Eve was walking through half naked, eating fruits off the trees and all of that. No, it's a defense city. It's the city of Adam. That's where he was placed as a high priest to give these offerings. So this guy, let's see, is there any more on that, Hakam? On that David Kimchi? I think there was one last part. Read that last sentence again.
All right. This was a necessary compilation of rules for the writings of Bible rolls, Masoretic notes, and accents due to widespread ignorance among the scribes of the 12th century.
All right, so we'll stop there. So we want to bring about this. We want to show that Pepin the Short employed the Jews at that time to accomplish his goal. Now you have to ask yourself why. Anytime we look at these Jews, when they're involved, it always has to revolve around money.
Mm-hmm.
They're always being financed by the Jews, or they're given some type of consideration to do a thing. So the Jews in this case helped Pepin. Pepin gave them a land called Narbonne, and out of the land Narbonne rose up this man who was the father of modern day Hebrew. In defining the Masoretic text, which is which the King James Version now is based from, the Bible scrolls that it talks about, the Masoretic text. That's the and then all the the Hebrew side of it, the diacritic points, and starting their new language. Yeah, their language is false. And it's young at that, but you tell them that, and it's the end of the world. No, it's not, but anyway. So we'll move on. We'll move on. So now we want to get into Charlemagne. So as we talked about before, to kind of backtrack, Charlemagne is the son of Pepin the Short. Pepin did a thing. He laid the foundation for his son to come in and rule, right? And as we talked about in the short part that we went over, he was close to these Jews, right? If you would, Hakam, let's go down to Charlemagne and let's talk about Charlemagne. So Charlemagne is important. So we dealt with Clovis the first. He brought that land or the Western Roman Empire to a certain point. Now Charlemagne is going to take it to another level.
Charlemagne was a king of the Franks from 768, king of the Lombards from 774, and emperor of what is now known as the Carolingian Empire from 800.
All right. So if you scroll up, if I can have the engineer just bring up that shot of the Carolingian Empire, this is what it's talking about. He united the Franks and this whole landmass, right? We're going to get more on him because he was like Clovis, but like I said, he took it to another level. And he represented the Carolingian Empire. I didn't bring that out earlier. I kind of overlooked that. So it was Merovingian Empire. That passed away. That bloodline was passed away. Now the kings are going to come through the Carolingian Empire, which was headed by Charlemagne. And so we'll continue reading.
He united most of the Western and Central Europe and was the first recognized emperor to rule from the West after the fall of the Western Roman Empire.
So here is the kicker. He was an emperor. We went over before what the emperor was. We're going to get more into it, but the Pope made him emperor of the Western Roman Empire. That is the effect that he had. He was a very valiant warrior. If you talking about Charlemagne, if you study, the French stuff, I don't study it, but those who study the French stuff know the importance of Charlemagne. Napoleon Bonaparte, who was a modern day warrior and general in the French army, talks about Charlemagne. If you go to Annapolis and if you go to, these schools of war, they talk about the feats of Charlemagne. But we'll continue reading.
Charlemagne's reign was marked by political and social changes that had lasting influence on Europe throughout the Middle Ages. A member of the Frankish Carolingian dynasty, Charlemagne was the eldest son of Pepin the Short and Bertrada of Leon. With his brother Carloman, he became king of the Franks in 768 following Pepin's death and became the sole ruler 3 years later. Charlemagne continued his father's policy of protecting the papacy.
Another important point. So he had the same desire that Clovis did. But again, Charlemagne is on another level. His whole thing was to protect the Pope. And this is what was needed to resurrect the western side of the Roman Empire. This is what an emperor does. Matter of fact, let's go back to the top, if you would, Hakam. Let's read what a Roman emperor does. Just what's highlighted. Yeah. Roman Empire is near the beginning.
All right. Roman emperors held absolute power. Oh, just to highlight it.
Yeah, the highlight part.
All right. Their core responsibilities spanned 5 main areas: military command, political and legal leadership, financial and public infrastructure management, religious authority, and maintaining public order.
So here we see, as we'll read more about Charlemagne, he did that. He was a very astute man. He brought about in France a renaissance in education, in governance. And we'll go ahead and read it because I forgot some of it actually. But yeah, we'll go ahead and read what he did. Let's actually go down to where it says Holy Roman Emperor. So he was the Holy Roman Emperor. He was coronated in Rome by Pope Leo III. And we'll go ahead and read at that point.
In his role as a zealous defender of Christianity, Charlemagne gave money and land to the Christian church to protect the popes. As a way to acknowledge Charlemagne's power and reinforce his relationship with the church, Pope Leo III crowned Charlemagne emperor of the Romans and the first ruler of the vast Holy Roman Empire on December 25th, 800 at St. Peter's Basilica in Rome.
So what is it with the December 25th? I don't know. You know, anybody knows about that? Throw that in the chat. I don't know what the significance of December 25th is. So here we've proved that France, what he did, they are definitely a horn. We've proved that they have Roman pedigree and that their desire was to advance Roman statehood. We see that he was made ruler of the Holy Roman Empire, so it was resurrected. It was down up until this point. It was, I believe, like 300 years, if I'm not mistaken. But let's read on. Let's read.
If I can say one, this is just my theory, because December 25th, when you're dealing with paganism, is the beginning of the rising of the sun. So it may have been that they did these things because it was the rising of a new king. And that's just my opinion on that, trying to figure out why they would do that on that particular date. But we know that that is homage to their sun god. So that's probably the reason why they coronated him and made him king on that particular date.
And then, yeah, so where it says as a Holy Roman Emperor.
All right, Charlemagne proved to be a talented diplomat and an able administrator of the vast area he controlled. He promoted education and encouraged the Carolingian Renaissance, a period of renewed emphasis on scholarship and culture. Charlemagne also instituted economic and religious reforms and was a driving force behind the Carolingian minuscule, a standardized form of writing that later became a basis for modern European printed alphabets.
So you can see, you know, not only was he a warrior, like I said, he was astute. He was an intellect. And this is, you know, exactly what the Pope needed for the emperor to run the western side of the Roman Empire.
And skillful in diplomacy.
Skillful in diplomacy. And, you know, we don't have it here, but like, again, he was a mighty warrior. And we know what that's about. When Hasatan gets behind you, you know what I'm saying? I mean, these brothers do, you know, enormous feats. So there's no different with Charlemagne. He was influenced by Hasatan to bring about the Western Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, in its beginning stages. This is the beginning. If I could have the engineer bring up the part where it says West, Middle, and East Francia. And then we'll hold it here for a moment. And if you would, Hakam, let's read after the death of Charlemagne.
After the death of Charlemagne in 814, the Frankish Empire fell into the civil war within the Carolingian dynasty and was divided.
So like I said before, they, you know, as a microcosm, as we see with the toes, someone is always vying for power.
Yeah.
Right? So when he passed away, they had the same type of dynasty. All the Frank kings came from Charlemagne's line. It was hereditary. So the kingdom was divided, and it was divided due to the Treaty of Verdun in 843, and it split up the kingdom, as you can see in the caption there or in the picture. This was a vast land. And so we've proven that the coronation of Charlemagne as emperor of the Western Roman Empire is proof that this was continuation of the Roman statehood and a territory under the Roman Empire. So they're in fact a horn. This is the beginning of France. So they had other things happen within the kingdom. We don't want to give it away. We got more. Stay tuned. You'll see what came about of this. But as it applies now, we want to prove that France was a horn. Francia, it wasn't in here. I know it's saying Francia, but it's just saying that this is Francia means the kingdom of the Franks. That's what Francia means. So now we're going to change gears. So in proving also that it's a horn, we have to show that this horn oppressed Israel. afflicted Israel. And as we've been showing in this series, this came about with the slave trade. If you would, Hangabari, I'm going to have you get that part where it says involvement in the slave trade. How were they involved in the slave trade? So we're going to talk about the French slave trade. And when you have it, we'll read, please.
France. France acquired enslaved Africans primarily through the Atlantic slave trade, establishing coastal trading posts and purchasing captives from local leaders along the western coast of Africa. Between the 17th and the mid-19th century, French merchants deported approximately 1.3 to 1.4 million Africans to work on colonial plantations.
All right, so here again, like we said it before, they're understating these numbers. It was more than that. And so we'll scroll down to these different areas on where they were getting their slaves from. So we'll start off with, I think it's Senegambia.
Senegambia, modern-day Senegal and the Gambia. The French established early major trading posts here, such as in St. Louis on the island of Gorée.
All right. And this, we'll read the next one.
The Bight of Benin and the Bight of Biafra.
So this Bight means a port. It's a word for port. It's not often used now, but that's what that means.
Coastal regions in modern-day Nigeria, Benin, and Togo.
Now pay attention to where they're coming from. We talked about this early in the class. All these countries are on the west side of Africa, right? And we'll get more into that. We'll go down to the next one.
Longo Coast, area in modern-day Gabon, the Republic of the Congo, which became the primary departure point for French ships in the late 18th century.
So we talked about all these horns that we went over. They were involved in the slave trade. They were all in on it. It's not in here. France was the third largest exporter of slaves behind Britain and Portugal.
Portugal is powerful, yeah.
Britain and Portugal. So they were all heavily invested into the slave trade. The slave trade built their kingdoms, right? And we're going to see more in this, as we read on. So we'll stop there. I want to focus on the Loango Coast. And this is important because this was the most profitable part of the slave trade. They don't mention it here, the Loango Coast. These slaves went to Haiti. And Haiti was a crown jewel of the French slave trade. It made the most money because they were harvesting sugarcane, which was the dope at that time. I'll put it that way. Everybody wanted that sugar. But it took a lot of slaves to yield that sugarcane. It was hot. A lot of slaves went there. And so we want to talk about that because an interesting thing happened in Haiti. And so if you would, Hakam, we're going to go down to where it says, we're going to talk about the Haitian Revolution. So again, these people are coming from the west coast of Africa. These are our people. That's that can't be argued. There's so much historical evidence, research that goes to show you that these were the true Hebrews that resided in these areas. It's funny when they talk about, and I don't have a map up, but during 70 AD, when Jerusalem fell, the pictures that we showed you was all occupied by the Romans. So the Western Roman Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire, why would the slaves run into that? When below them there's nothing. So if they go south, they're going into Africa, all parts of Africa. They're trying to escape persecution and not be a part of it. But just want to point that out. But here we want to point out that, the the slaves revolted, and we want to talk a little bit about this revolt and what came of it to bring it up to modern day times. So if you have that, we'll go ahead and read.
All right, the Haitian Revolution, also known as the Haitian War of Independence, was a successful insurrection by enslaved Africans against the French colonial rule in Saint Domingue, now the sovereign state of Haiti.
So the person who led that slave revolt, I know most of you know, is Toussaint L'Ouverture. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but Toussaint L'Ouverture was the one who led this rebellion, who was a mastermind military-wise to overcome the colonial powers. We'll continue reading.
The revolution was one of the only known slave rebellions in human history that led to the founding of a state which was both free from slavery and ruled by former captives.
All right, so that sounds good. I mean, that's a good thing, right? They overthrew their slaveholders, but what came of that, right? When you look at history and we bring it up to modern day times, what came of this slave revolt? Now, this is where we're going to see how the horns oppressed Israel. Because although they overthrew their slave oppressor, or their oppressor, they had no economy, right? There was a thing that had to be done. It was like the horns got together with the U.S. and other powers and said, look, we're not going to trade with Haiti, right? And Haiti has to pay us reparations. We overthrew them, but they made them pay reparations, which ended a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken. It was sometime in the 90s. So from this time all the way up, they were paying France reparations. And they were paying from nothing. They have no GDP, really. So this is reflective of that. I want to bring out a reference again here to show you the mindset of our people at that time. If the engineer could bring up this book called Africa, being an accurate description of the regions. This book was written by John Ogilvy, and it gives credence to who is in the west side of Africa, right? Was it the fake Jews or was it the real Jews? And he speaks on this. Now, this book was published in 1670, if I'm not mistaken, so in the 15th century. And I'll go ahead and read it. It has some funny writing in here. The way that they printed this at the time, you know, that it looks like an F, but it's an S. But I'll go ahead and read it. And so this lends us to what was happening in Europe at that time. It says, many Jews also are scattered over this region. And the region that it's talking about is the, matter of fact, there's a picture. I didn't put it in there, actually. The Niger River. You could pull it up if you have it. Well, at that time, if you look at the ancient maps, that was the Negro land, or what they call Sudan, that region of Africa. This is the timeline that he's talking about. So, and he says it here, many Jews also are scattered over this region, some natives boasting themselves of Abraham's seed, inhabiting both sides of the river, not Nigger, actually that's how it's pronounced, the river Nigger. Others are Asian strangers who fled thither either from the desolation of Jerusalem by Vespucian, or from Judea, which was wasted and depopulated by the Romans, Persians, Saracens, and Christians, or such as came out of Europe, whence they were banished out of some parts of Italy in the year 1342, out of Spain in the year 1462, out of the lower countries in 1350. These lower countries is talking about southern France. And then it says out of France in 1403. out of England in 1422. These all differ in habit and are divided into several tribes. So it's talking about, the different tribes of Israel. It's not in here, but it's documented. Some of these tribes said we're of Judah. Having no dominion, meaning they didn't have any land, they didn't rule over anything, though both wealthy and numerous, but despised of all nations. That only fits one people. That's the Jews. That's Israel. That's us. And so abominated by the Turks that they are not admitted to while Asarf there. So here you very rarely, see when you look at these old references where it references or ties to Deuteronomy, which we're going to get into later. And we'll get into another reference here. And I want to point out this information, this historical information. We're bringing out the spiritual component. As we talk about, nobody is talking about Balaam and Balak and the dark arts and the things that we're doing. But at House of Wisdom, we give credence to those that brought about some of this historical information. There was an Israelite that brought about this information, this historical data that we're talking about now, and his name is B'nai Israel. So we want to give credit where credit's due. Unfortunately, not a lot of our Hebrew brothers do that. We just recently, what was that, Priest? Saw something where they talking about the last days now. Everybody want to talk about the last days and different things that the House of Wisdom is talking about, but never give credit to where credit is due. And that's to Malak Kahan Banyala, this information. We're not like that. So we give credit to B'nai Israel for bringing out the historical data that helps further us. So we'll bring out the next image, if you would, for the engineer, with the one that says Sayudan or Sudan. So this is kind of a bridge image of the western side of Africa, showing the Sudan and Negro land where the Israelites were. And if you look closely on this map, you see the kingdom of Weda or kingdom of Judah. You see all these different things that point to the Israelites. But now that we saw this map here of the Sayudan, let's go down to this caption here.
And I also see Ashanti, and we spoke about the Ashanti last week.
Right. Which is Israelite tribe. We'll go down to this next caption, and Khan Gabari, I'm going to have you read that with the Sayudan, the one that's highlighted.
The Jews of Sudan are, according to my informers, divided into many large and small tribes.
All right, and I forgot to mention that this document was written in the early 1800s. So this information is being chronicled, sent back to the person who's writing this document now, talking about the state of the Jews in the Sayudan, in Negro land, and what they're saying, what their mindset was. We'll go ahead and we'll read.
So it says, large and small tribes, with those names, they are unacquainted. Their mode of life in some countries is pastoral, but the towns are filled with traders and artificers of that faith, who gain and subsistence at their several employments in the service of the Muslims, under whose government they live as vassals.
And vassal here means slaves. They live as slaves. So they're saying that this group of people, the Jews, are under the Muslim authority and they're serving them, and their livelihood comes from them. We'll continue reading.
This in reference to Mr. Bowditch's kingdom of Yehudi, I may be permitted to say, is the only state of society in which the oppressed nations is suffered to live.
So that Yehudi is Judah, right? They said Yehudi, but that means Judah. But yeah, we'll continue reading on.
And the tribes, without security in their possessions, without public revenue or arms, are hourly exposed to insult and repine from the blind zeal and active bigotry by which their lords are animated in those countries.
All right, so so they're experiencing what we experience here: the bigotry, the insults. You know, it says in and I believe it was one of the ones that Khan Gabari had, a byword and help me out, priest. Did you go over that one?
Yeah, I can't think of it right now.
But anyway, yeah, they spoke of us in an evil way, just like the curses said they would.
A proverb and a byword.
Yeah, proverb and a byword.
Yeah.
So this is reflective of that here. But let's continue reading, because something very important, as I said, what we talked about in the beginning of the class is going to show up here.
The lands occupied by these people covered a wide extent between Messina and Kabi. They are said to be mingled also with the upper Faula
Yeah,
Falha tribe?
Yeah.
Falua tribe, eastward of Timbuktu. And in many parts of Mara, they have inheritance or are employed by the artificer in the cities and in towns.
All right, so pay close attention to this part, because this is where we want to get out. The other stuff was important, but this is very important.
As we live among the heathens, said the Bashaw, so do the Jews in Mara and Philini with our brethren.
So Bashar is not a Jew. He's of another nation, right? He's speaking clearly of the Jews.
But they are not esteemed like us, for they are a people hardened in their sins and abstinent in infidelity.
So what is he talking about there? Infidelity, right? Anybody? When he talks about infidelity, what is he talking about? Worshiping of idols. He's speaking from a religious standpoint. He says, read that part again, please.
But they are not esteemed like us, for they are a people hardened in their sins.
Stiff-necked. We hear that in Scripture.
And abstinent in infidelity.
Obstinate, meaning hardened. Hardened in their infidelity. They're not looking to change. But let's see. And again, this man is just chronicling what is going on in the western part of Africa, who the Jews are, and what their mindset is, right? He doesn't, well, I'm assuming this. He doesn't know about the scriptures that we're talking about. He's just recording how they think, right? Let's read the next part.
The anger of the Heavenly Father is upon them.
Listen to that. The anger of the Heavenly Father is upon them. Why?
And therefore,
what happens?
And therefore are they given to the rule of the Muslims.
Because of their infidelity, because they're not keeping law, statutes, and commandments with the Most High, they knew that the anger of the Most High was upon them and was the reason the Muslims ruled over them. Very powerful statement. I mean, up until this point, I've never seen something in literature when it comes to the curses in Deuteronomy line up in that way. They said they knew, but they were still obstinate in, against the will of the Most High. So if this chronicler was told this, right, don't you think these kings of these horns know that? Absolutely. The popes know that. They know it. Again, he was just recording what was happening, but they and listen to the outcome. So we talked about this last week. I think it was in Leviticus 26 and 40. But let's read that last part after it says they are given into the rule of the Muslims.
Here we are. Until they shall become incorporated with the faithful.
Incorporated with the faithful. Meaning, and I took that to be, and I don't think I'm, taking license to, not explain this the right way. Incorporated with the faithful, meaning those that are keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. Now, we already know from those at the house of wisdom, you got to be under the right covenant. They weren't under the appropriate covenant back then. But they didn't know about the seventh covenant, you know. So this is coming out now, right, in this time that we're living in. But we just want to point out that this is in line with Deuteronomy. He says, you know, if you should do this, things will go well for you. If you don't, these curses will be upon you, and that's what they're exemplifying here. But we'll drop that. So now, you know, we want to look at the footprint of France. So these horns have colonies throughout the world. They have dominion over the children of Israel. As we saw there in these writings, we see that, you know, the other nations had dominion over us. But we're going to take a look at this side of the French colonies in Africa. And if the engineer could bring that up. French colonies in Africa. So you have a lot of French-speaking countries in Africa. So we're just waiting for them to bring that up. All right. Okay. All right. So when you look at Africa, Africa is a massive continent. And we'll bring that up in a moment. And then also, like you said, they had colonies in the Caribbean. Also, the French dominated Canada, large parts of Canada. And then, if I'm not mistaken, here they also had dominion in India, in Southeast Asia, Europe. So their dominance also in South America, you know, and when you look at the map in all these places, we're there. We're there. They're dominating us. They're not dominating other, you know, Caucasian and sub-ethnic groups of Caucasians. They're dominating Israel. And this is going in line with the curses that we speak about often and that we're going to talk about a little bit more near the end of this class. And I don't know. Okay, it's up now. So you see here, those that are watching the stream, you can see all this land. I mean, it just, that they govern and dominate. And I guess I can bring up one here if you see it in Burkina Faso. So this has been in the news a lot. Burkina Faso, with Ibrahim Traore, has, you know, kicked France out, has nationalized all the gold mines, you know, all the other, I'm trying to think, diamonds, precious minerals, all this. They kicked France out, cut them completely off. They have no diplomatic ties to France. And you see that happening a lot now. In this region on the map, if you look at kind of like where it says Mauritania, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso, Senegal, they're making an alliance and they've kicked the French out. So if they update this map that you see here, these regions will no longer be in blue. And they're suffering economically because of it.
Oh, yeah.
Suffering. I mean, they still have money coming in, but this was the cash cow for them. The gold, precious mineral and resources. And, you know, because of it, they tried to kill Ibrahim Traore. I don't know. Is it over like 30 times now? But they can't kill him. And so this, to me, is emblematic that, you know, France will never return as that ruling horn. They had their hour with the beast, and they'll no longer be on top.
It's over.
Yeah, they're gradually declining, like you see, you know, the other horns that we talked about. So with that being said, we'll move on to the next horn.
Right, which would be Scandinavia. And those countries that are involved in Scandinavia will be Denmark, Sweden, and Norway and Finland. If the engineer can pull up that map that's underneath there, you can actually see where it's at. I don't have a title for it, but it's right underneath the Scandinavian slave trade in Denmark. Right below my name under there. So while they go ahead and get that, I guess you can keep going.
Okay.
While they go ahead and get that, Kahan, you can go ahead and read the Roman connection of there. And this is all coming from Wikipedia.org, the information that we got for this particular information. So if you get that, go ahead and read that. That's not the, is that the?
No, that's not the right map.
Yeah, it's on page 20. That map that's on page 20 of 31. So if you could bring that up so they can kind of see where Norwegian, Swedes, and then it says the Danes right there, which is right above Britain and right above what we just went over, the French Empire. So if you can see the map also at some time, or remember, or go back to see the map of the Roman Empire, they're not highlighted in the yellow or the red. I saw both of them, yellow and in the red. They're not highlighted in there, but we're going to go over how they were a part of the Roman connection. So, Kahan Rashim, go ahead and read that.
The Roman connection. Scandinavia never fell under Roman control, but they maintained vital economic and cultural ties.
They maintained these vital economical and cultural ties. They wanted to be a part of the Roman Empire. Even though the Romans didn't conquer them, they wanted to be a part of that empire. And we're going to go into the information on that as well as some other things. But let's go ahead.
During the Roman Iron Age, 0 to 400 CE, Germanic tribes exchanged furs, amber, hides for Roman luxury goods, as evidenced by over 11,000 Roman coins, silver drinking cups, and glassware excavated across the region.
Go ahead. Showing you that they were a part of the Roman Empire, meaning that they were willingly a participant in helping out Rome and being a part of Rome. But I think it's interesting, right? This part here where it says the Roman Iron Age. It's kind of amazing that Daniel, before that age came about, said that the Roman Empire, what he saw in the vision, the legs were of iron. I thought that was amazing. That the Most High gave that information to Daniel to know that. Just reading these things and seeing the connection between what's happening in real time and then what was happening during the prophecies during Daniel and how they're actually linking up. But go ahead.
Specific connections and influences included military and diplomats. Romans recruited Germanic mercenaries from Northern Europe. Historical artifacts like the luxury silver cups discovered in chieftains' graves in H.O.W, Denmark, were likely diplomatic gifts or war spoils obtained along the Roman frontiers.
See that? So they were a part of that. Romans used them for military help, and they was willing to help them. They were like an ally. Go ahead.
Cultural adaptation. Scandinavian elites adopted Roman-style luxury goods and weaponry to signify power.
And they weren't forced into it. They willingly accepted this and wanted to be a part of this great empire. Go ahead.
Nordic artisans incorporated Roman metallurgical techniques and design motifs into their own local craft.
See how they incorporated Roman metallurgy and their techniques? Why didn't they use something else? Why didn't they use Babylonian techniques? They used the Romans because they admired the Romans and they wanted to be a part of this great empire. They wanted the support of the Roman Empire. But go ahead.
The runic alphabet. The development of the runic script, Farthark, by earlier Germanic peoples was heavily inspired by the Latin alphabet used in the Roman Empire.
So if they didn't want to be a part of the Roman Empire, why are they doing, they say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. This is what they're doing. They want to be like Rome. They want to be, indoctrinated and taught by these Romans and use their techniques in war and in creating their metallurgy or their weaponry out of particular metals. But go ahead.
Later, during the Byzantine era, the connection shifted to the famous Varangian Guard, where Scandinavians served as elite bodyguards to the emperors in Constantinople.
So this is showing their connection to that Roman Empire. Just bear with me for 1 minute here. Hold on 1 second here.
And that Byzantine Empire is the eastern part of the Roman Empire. There's no such thing as Byzantine, but it's something used by the historians to describe the eastern half of the empire, label the eastern half of the empire.
So, apprentice priest, H.O.W, can you give me that Jewish connection? And this Jewish connection showing the connection between, or what the Jews are, their involvement in Denmark or Scandinavia and all these other countries that make up this other horn. I guess it would be the seventh horn in this case, or at least the sixth or the seventh horn, how they were or how they had their role and their part in it. And if you notice the theme that's been going on and what we've been bringing out, the Wada Abba Yahweh, that these so-called Jews, the Jewish people, are scattered throughout all these nations, causing mischiefs, setting up lies, and changing history. They had their hand in the whole shebang. And in this case, you would see that they had their hands in this particular nation as well. So let's go ahead and, when you get that, AP, just go ahead and start reading.
Christian IV was the first Danish king to establish connection with the Jews. This happened because he needed a mint master to run the mint in his newly planted town, Gluckstadt, on the Elbe. And in 1619, Albert Dionys was appointed to this post. Dionys, a shepherdy Jew.
He was a who?
Shepherdy Jew.
A shepherdy Jew. If you know, you got Victorian Jews.
Right.
What was that thing called again? Where would you leave off? Help me out real quick, because I lost my spot.
Albert.
What's the name of them Jews again?
Where I was?
Yeah.
Sephardi.
I lost my place. What page was you on?
22.
Oh, 1 second. Bear with me for a minute.
At the very top.
Let's see here. Denmark. But anyway, you see these Jews are in everything. They have all kind of different names for these Jews. Sephardic Jews, Victorian Jews. They had their hand in everything, especially dealing with the movement and the slavery, and also the helping of these particular countries, nations, establishing power with the beast. So they had their hand in all of it. So let's go ahead and read. Call the what page you on again? 22?
Yep.
And go ahead and start reading.
A shepherdy Jew of the Portuguese nation, as they came to be designated in Denmark, had settled in Hamburg in 1605, where he developed an extensive import-export business. Dionys thus became the first Jew to be issued a royal Danish letter of protection. After consulting with Dionys in 1622, King Christian IV invited Portuguese Jews from Amsterdam and Hamburg to settle the Gluckstadt in hope that this town would compete with Hamburg.
So they got these Jews in here strategically to get financed and to help them grow as a power. Go ahead.
To attract enterprising merchants.
So what we're going over is, not only did we go over it with the French, but we're also going over it with the Scandinavian countries that are involved, where they got their start from, how they got their start, who was involved, and then what they were involved in. Go ahead, let's read on.
To attract enterprising merchants with disposable capital, a large number of trading privileges, as well as freedom of religion were offered.
So they had this set up because in order for them to grow, they needed these so-called Jews to come in finance what was going on, and then be able to attract other people who had money so that this country can eventually be able to trade with these people who had money and then gain some finances, and eventually, as we see and as we know, Hasatan is using these particular individuals to give the power to one of the 10 horns. In this case, it would be the 6th or the 7th horn. But let's go ahead and read.
The privileges given to these Jews were broadened on several occasions until they obtained, among others, the right to trade freely in Denmark. And throughout the 17th century, they provided luxury goods to the Danish court and arranged large loans for the Danish kings.
Large loans for the Danish kings. Why are they giving them this money? I wonder why. So ultimately, like I said, this is the beginning of their power, gaining their power 1 hour with the beast. But go ahead.
Some German Ashkenazi Jews,
the Ashkenazi Jews, go ahead,
traded in Denmark, but they had to be able to produce a special letter of safe conduct, since privileges concerning the rights to trade and live in Denmark only applied to the Portuguese Jews. In 1667, however, the Jews from Altona, near Hamburg, were empowered to travel and trade freely in Denmark, which included Norway and Schleswig-Holstein.
So they set up this so that they can attract these particular people to come in, and then eventually you see them rise to power. Anywhere where these so-called Jews are, there's power and finances coming in on a large level. And we see that this is the same case as it was with the other horns. The Jewish people had their dirty little fingers all in the mix. But that's all right, because ultimately Abba saw you, he sees you, and there's punishment that's coming for what you've done to the children of Israel.
Yeah.
But let's go ahead and move on and see how they've gained their power.
First Jews in Denmark. The real settlement of Jews in Denmark proper, however, first became in the 1670s when the government, acting according to the mercantilist motives, wished to promote trade and industry. Some tobacco manufacturers and dealers were allowed to settle in Copenhagen and in few provincial towns, but were not given any religious concessions.
Go ahead.
In 1682, the privileges of the recently established fortresses and commercial centers of Fredericia were extended to include religious freedoms for all of its inhabitants. This attracted a number of poor German Jews who, for the most part, made a living from tobacco manufacturing and retail trading.
So that brought them Germanic, the poor versions of those Jews, flooding into this area. Go ahead.
But many years were to pass before this community could afford to build a synagogue and appoint a rabbi.
Go ahead.
Among the Jews in Copenhagen were some well-to-do German Jews who served, among other things, as court jewelers. One of them, Mayer Goldschmidt, applied for and was granted in 1684 the right to hold religious services for the community. Though this was limited to the privacy of his own house and no form of sermon could be preached, the establishment of Copenhagen community is always considered to have begun with this event.
So this guy here, Mayor Goldschmidt, actually from the government, a part of the German Jews, was to come in and then house a place for these Jews to be able to worship. And I think I have it already in here just in case we don't get it. He had this opened up to them for 50 years, and they began to grow. But go ahead.
For the next 50 years, service took place in Goldsmith home. A piece of land for a cemetery was purchased in 1694. And in the following year, the Sephardic Jews were also given permission to hold services. In general, however, the commercial possibilities of Portuguese Jews were far and few in between the Danish capital, and it was German Jews who became dominant.
So they were in there jockeying for position and power, the so-called Jews, to get up. And then eventually we're going to see as we move on that these same folks were responsible for other things that took place as far as coming against the children of Israel. So let me see. Go ahead and read.
Internal self-government from 1684 to 1814. For over 50 years, Mayor Goldsmith was the undisputed leader of the Copenhagen community. However, the leadership in fact was composed of 7 men, 3 elders and 4 principals, who, in associate with a number of officials, organized practical matters. There were often disputes over these representative posts, and religious disagreements could divide the community.
I'll go ahead and jump down to the highlighted area.
However, the Danish merchant fleet and colonial trade experienced massive expansion during the second half of the 18th century.
See that? They got the Jews to come in. Money was flowing. They did as they had planned to have all of these people that had money to come in and cause this country or this region to become prosperous. So many of the Jews were able to build up major businesses. Who was running them? Them Jews, of course. And a number of important Jewish trading houses were funded during this period. So in this period, you can kind of see where the Danish and that region began to now become wealthy. Go ahead.
Transatlantic slave trade.
As a matter of fact, you can give me that, Kahan Rashim. So we know that they had the money over there. We know that they were over the Danish, over that Scandinavian area. They bought them in there strategically so that that money can come flowing into that area and eventually become a superpower for a short time. So let's deal with the Atlantic slave trade of the early centuries. So go ahead and read that, and we can move on.
Jewish involvement in the transatlantic trade in Scandinavia centers around 2 main historical intersections: Sephardic merchants operating under the flags of colonial empires, and the development of early Nordic Jewish communities.
So again, the Sephardic Jews, as we went through on the other horns, they're right there with their little hands being a part of the Atlantic slave trade. Everywhere we were, they made sure that they were there to make sure that we didn't advance. You know, but it wasn't really them. Ultimately, it was the Most High, because the prophecies had to play out. The Most High said, if you don't keep these commandments, these curses shall pursue you and overtake you. And you see, everywhere that we were, they had their hands there to overthrow us, to put us in that captivity, and to mistreat us. So let's go ahead and read on.
While popular discourse sometimes centers on Sephardic Jewish merchants participating in the transatlantic trade, mainstream historians, including those documenting Jewish history and my Jewish learning, agree that Jewish participation was opportunistic and secondary to the massive state-sponsored Christian European empires.
They had their hands in it and all the growth of their empires. So they're not innocent. They try to say that they're innocent, but all the evidence has been coming out during this series. You had your hand a part of this thing. You tried to play the background and act like you wasn't really doing much, but you were there sponsoring, funding, and even supplying the ships for the transatlantic slave trade. Stop playing. The gig is up. The Most High said in Isaiah that he would begin to lift the veil off of the nations, and we see that. If you go into TikTok and all these other social media, you'll start seeing now that these other nations are saying the same thing we are, that these people are not nice people. They were, in fact, in charge of the slave trades, but then they also revealing that they are not the real people of the Most High. But what I did notice is that the Most High is lifting up the veil, the skirt of these so-called Jews, but what the people are not doing is saying who are the real Jews, who are the real people of the Most High. So the information is coming out. Not only are we bringing it out in details, being a part of prophecy, but other people who really don't understand the prophecies or understand biblical history are bringing these things out now in support of what, not so much in support of what we're saying. The Most High is revealing these things to them, and they're coming out agreeing with the things that we're saying. So let's go ahead and read on.
It's the reason why they're trying to dominate and own all the social media outlets.
Yeah.
To try to control the narrative.
They got it.
Mm-hmm.
But go ahead.
Jewish merchants and crypto Jews in territories like the Dutch Republic, Brazil, and Curacao were heavily involved in the commodities of the era, such as sugar, tobacco, and enslaved labor.
Yeah, who was growing and picking the sugar and the tobaccos? You know it was us. And it's telling you right here. And enslaved labor, right, they were heavily involved in. Go ahead.
In the Dutch Caribbean, for instance, a portion of the economy, such as the plantations at the Jodensveen in Suriname and Curacao, had notable Jewish communities' participation. Still, Jewish involvement was largely a subset of overall European mercantile activity.
So you see also, not only did the Jews grab us from the western coast of Africa, you also see that these Jews dealing with the empire of the Scandinavian or the Dutch had their footprint in these particular places, right? The Caribbean. We're going to go over that as well as some of the other places that they had their footprint as far as during this slave trade and in their rulership. But go ahead.
Begin the next section.
Yeah, go ahead. You can read that too. And this is coming from the slave freed, what is that? The Fringes, the slavefreeseas.org. And the Danish role in the transatlantic slave trade. So let's go ahead and read that. The Danish colonies in the Caribbean. So the Danish, they had their colonies just as the French had their colonies, but we're going to show you where they had their colonies in the Caribbean islands. But go ahead.
Denmark's Caribbean colonies were known as the Danish West Indies and consisted of St. Thomas, St. John,
go ahead,
and St. Croix.
So if you see this here, you're probably saying, well, wait a minute. I thought, yeah, you were right. But let's go ahead and read.
Denmark sold these islands to the United States for $12 million in gold in 1917.
That's $25 million.
$25 million.
Yeah, in gold. So these were sold to the Americas, and then they became known as the U.S. Virgin Islands. So they had their footprint there. They did what they needed to do there as substations and hubs for their slave trade, and then eventually sold it off to America in 1917 for $25 million. So this is why you don't see the Dutch's or Denmark's footprint on it or Scandinavian footprint on there, because they sold it off. But they did have rulership and ownership of those islands. But go ahead.
These islands were significant to the Danish colonial empire, serving as its central hubs in the region.
See that? They were a central hub. So as they were making their journey, it was a pit stop for whatever particular reason they had to do with the slaves, and then eventually the slaves went off to wherever they had to, or wherever they were sold. But go ahead.
The strategic positioning of these islands within the Caribbean Sea granted Denmark key geographical advantages, enabling the nation to engage effectively in the colonial competition at the time.
Look at that. The colonial competition of the time. That's all of these horns jockeying for position. They were just number 7 on the playing field, but they were all jockeying for position, trying to overthrow each other and outdo each other so that they can get that, what's the word I want to use? The privilege of being able to rule in this last period of time with the beast, their daddy. But let's go ahead.
The Danish West Indies were not only geographic tokens in the colonial game, but also became vital economic centers. Central to Denmark's involvement in the slave trade were these colonies.
Look at that, vital economic centers. Vital. That means they made a lot of money in these strategic positions to be able to come to power. And who did they get help by? These so-called Jewish folks. But let's go ahead.
Which housed extensive sugarcane plantations. Such plantations required an immense labor force to maintain productivity, making the enslaved African workforce a tragic yet integral component of the colonial economy.
Tragic, yet integral component of the colonial economy. So the Africans that they got was, of course, from the western coast of Africa. I think that's going to reveal itself as we move on in this journey to show you the Scandinavians being in their power 1 hour with the beast. Go ahead and finish that. Are you finished that? And let me get from AP, how come the role of the Danish in the West Indies and Guyana?
The establishment of the Danish West Indian and Guyana Company in 1671.
So we know Guyana is in South Africa. I mean, South America, the northern part of South Africa. I mean, I keep saying Africa, South America.
South America.
So they had their footprint on that land as well in South America. Go ahead. Now, you don't hear too much about Denmark, but they had a specific role that they played, and a significant role in the transatlantic slave trade against our people. And then what was that, what we saw again? Yeah, the African workforce, right? A tragic and yet integral component of colonial economy. So they didn't treat us well as also. They treat us horribly. But let's go ahead and read.
It marked a pivotal development in managing Denmark's colonial pursuits and trading ventures. This company was instrumental in orchestrating and implementing the complexities of the slave trade operations. Its responsibilities extended to securing a consistent supply of enslaved individuals from the Gulf Coast.
From who?
From the Gulf Coast.
From the Gold Coast. Where's the Gold Coast? Western Africa. Right there, revealing to you who were the people that were there. I mean, if you already know, you know. That's us, the Israelites. Go ahead.
A region known today as part of Ghana in West Africa.
There you go.
These individuals were then transported across the perilous Atlantic journey, a segment of the trade known historically as the Middle Passage.
And we read earlier that the Arabs knew that these people were frustrating the grace of the Heavenly Father. And seeing that they were in iniquity, we can go and put them in captivity. So you mean to tell me if the Muslims knew that, the Danish didn't know? Who told the Muslims? The Catholics, the Catholic Church. So who you think told the Danish, the Denmark, or the Scandinavian country? That other horn, that seventh horn, the papacy. They taught them the arts of accusations from Balaam. So they knew and they understood well. So go ahead.
Upon reaching the Caribbean, the enslaved people were eventually distributed to work on the plantation, thus beginning a life marked by hardship.
A life marked by hardship. I think you're going to go over that later, but remember that. It was a life marked by hardship. I wonder why that happened to us. We should already know. Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter. It's all recorded in there. We wasn't going to have it easy, but let's go ahead and read.
Life marked by hardship and exploitation under colonial rule.
Exploitation, a proverb and a byword. Go ahead.
The Middle Passage remains one of the most harrowing aspects of the transatlantic slave trade, with Denmark actively participating through its shipping practices. The conditions aboard Danish vessels reflected the broader inhumanity of the trade.
Inhumanity of the trade. So Denmark, if you say that you didn't have any part in slavery, here it is. And if you didn't know, for our people that don't know too much about slavery, there was a lot of folks that had a part in putting us in captivity. And they're all your enemies. None of them are your friends. They may play as your friends, but they're your enemies. This is why those that come in here at the House of Wisdom, you become friends, not only friends of us, but friends of the Most High, because you're doing his will. But outside of that, you know, how can we say this without offending? Listen, we don't really trust you. And I say that because think about what Paul was doing to the followers of Yahushua at the time. He was killing them. And when he converted, it was like, we hear you, but we don't trust you. So if you want to go out to the Gentiles, fine, we'll take care of the Jews here. but then ultimately his actions showed that he can be trustworthy. So in saying the same thing, these other nations, we don't trust you. But when you come in here, then we begin to trust you by way of the Most High. And eventually, if you're not for our good, the Most High is going to reveal you anyway and push you right on out. So, yes, they are our enemies. They're not our friends. Because if they were, they would have been told us the truth about who we were. And they have not. They didn't start telling the truth about who we were or who we are until we came out in the streets of New York City and all over the United States and the world saying we are the true biblical Jews. When the evidence came out and it was overwhelming, they said, yeah, you are the Jews. Mm-hmm. And now they're trying to act like, yeah, we've been with you the whole time. No, you haven't. It's just because you were backed up in the corner and you couldn't lie anymore. So although we appreciate you coming in, joining the covenant, this is all the will of the Most High. But ultimately, we got this from here. We don't need you anymore. Mm-hmm. We got Abba, we got the Heavenly Father, Ba'ashem Yahushai, and the Holy Spirit to guide us in this newfound understanding that we have according to the scriptures. But let's go ahead and finish this out.
Enslaved Africans were subjected to inhumane conditions as they were confined to the ship's hold for the duration of the voyage. These spaces were notoriously cramped and poorly ventilated.
And we went over that last week and showed the pictures how they actually placed us in these ships. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't, listen, yeah, I hope y'all don't think that these journeys that were being set upon were like 2 weeks, 5 hours, 16 hours, right. Months overseas. Mm-hmm. They weren't modern ships. They were modern ships for the time, but they were a lot slower. So we talking about months being confined in there. And if they had 400,000 slaves in the ships, they probably ended up with 100,000 by the time they hit shore. Yeah. So the numbers, we can't trust the numbers. They lie. They tell you 1 million, it was more than that. If they tell you only 1 million died, it was more than that. They lie. So let's finish reading.
These spaces were notoriously cramped and poorly ventilated, contributing to high mortality rate.
See that high mortality rate among the captives. Go ahead.
Inadequate provisions for food, water, and sanitation further exacerbated the plight of those on board.
They didn't give a rat's behind about who we were and what we went through. Mm-hmm. Like the brother brought out earlier, there was hey, God is against him. So that gives us the right to come against him as well with no repercussions. And they went in, hard body. The evidence is here. And what they're showing us is just skimming the surface. The punishment, the conditions were worse than what you can think of. They're not telling you the full truth. If they did, somebody would have to do something about what they did to us. And at this point right now, they really don't want to do anything, because if they did, they would have been done it. They're just playing the games. But as I said before, we good. We good. Keep that face when the Most High raise us up. And let's see how you act at that particular time. But let's go ahead.
The survivors of this arduous and often deadly journey subsequently found themselves facing further exploitations on the plantation, laboring under a system that sought to extract the maximum economic output from their forced servitude.
Yeah, they put them to work. Just like the Egyptians put the children of Israel to work and they made their bondage harder, this is what they did to us. And they're still continuing this behavior today. So let's go to, let me see here. Bear with me for 1 minute. All right, Khan Rashim, if you can go ahead and give me the next one. The Scandinavians' Atlantic slave trade.
Scandinavian.
So even though we said we went over to Denmark, Sweden, and I can't think of the other one right now, we're also a part of this, but we're showing that these individuals, even though they were particularly one-horned, consisting of those 3 countries, they were all a part of it. But let's go ahead.
Scandinavians and Atlantic slave trade, 17th to the early 19th century, Eric Schnackenborg. Between the late 17th century and the first decades of the 19th century, Scandinavians participated in the Atlantic slave trade like other Europeans.
No different. They were involved as well. Go ahead.
This trade led to the founding of the Danish and Swedish establishments in Africa.
So look what they're telling you, right? The slave trade led to the founding of the Danish and Swedish establishments in Africa and the West Indies. They made money. You can't do this unless you got money.
Correct.
They made money off of our backs. And at the time that they were gaining all of this wealth, where were we? In captivity. So they talk about Negroes are lazy. They don't want to do much. That's not the case. You've been holding us back for many years, but rightfully so. Abba said that he was going to do that. So I don't blame you guys. This is our fault. And the men that are here at the House of Wisdom, we're acknowledging that and doing things to change that. What are we doing to change that? As we brought out earlier, we're making sure that we're not, or that iniquity is not found in us here at the House of Wisdom, that we're keeping the commandments, that we're under the right covenant, and that we're giving up these oblations to keep us clean and to keep the Most High, to keep us in favor with the Most High. So let's go ahead.
However, the implication of the Scandinavians in the slave trade was not limited to the tens of thousands of African deportees. It had other effects, especially by offering outlets for national products or by stimulating trade between their colonies on a West Indian scale.
Go ahead.
Scandinavians began to take an interest in large-scale Atlantic trade during the first half of the 17th century. They founded trading companies, most often with the support from foreign investors.
Who were the foreign investors? Stop playing. I ain't even got to say it. Go ahead.
That were granted a monopoly over navigation to Africa, from where they were supposed to return with gold and ivory. The Danes and Swedes established their first trading post in current-day Ghana,
Western Africa, right close to Ashanti. Let's go.
In the mid-17th century, Scandinavians who established themselves in Africa before doing so in America took up the slave trade. In 1650, the Swedes were authorized to provide slave labor to the Portuguese colony of Sao Tome.
So even though the Portuguese had us in slavery, you had the Swedes that was authorized to go ahead and grab them up and then give them to or sell them to the Portuguese. So they had their hands in it. And even though, if you read that, you would think that they didn't have any, when I say their part in it, that they didn't have slaves, that they actually got them and they gave them over to the Portuguese. It was a whole monopoly of getting the bag, getting that money. So if we can sell some, have some, put some on plantations, it's almost like, with the Christian church always say, you got to have multiple income streams. They had multiple income streams taking advantage of our people. But let's go ahead and finish this out.
And I was just going to add one thing, Priest.
Go ahead.
That reference that we read earlier was written or published in 1670, so this is going right in line to what the priest is bringing out here.
Khan.
In 1650, the Swedes were authorized to provide slave labor to the Portuguese colony of Sao Tome and to load sugar there, and were later granted the right to transport slaves to the Dutch island of Curacao. During its dozen years of activity, the Swedish African Company ultimately transported approximately 2,000 slaves.
You could probably add a couple of zeros to that. Go ahead.
But Swedish establishments in Africa declined after a few years, whereas Danish ones endured until 1850.
So they were all a part of that same Scandinavia, but you see that they had their little part, and then the Swedes had their little part to have that rule, and then the Swedes, Danish, there's one more that I keep forgetting what it is, but let's go ahead and move on.
Let's see. On the other side of the Atlantic, aside from a brief North American episode, the Swedes did not have any possessions in the West Indies before acquiring St. Bartholomew in 1784. Here, once again, the Danes had a larger presence. They acquired 3 islands where the Greater and Lesser Antilles meet: St. Thomas, St. John, and St. Croix.
Bringing out that information again in all the years that they acquired it. Go ahead.
The Danes engaged in a triangular trade with a total of approximately 260 voyages and deported 100,000 to 110,000 Africans between 1660 and 1806, or approximately 1% of the total Atlantic slave trade. The average number of Africans taken on by the Danish ships increased tenfold between 1660 and 1733.
So they was in the business. Go ahead.
In 1793 and 1806, which amounted to 2,577 per year. Throughout the 18th century periods of Danish neutrality during French-British conflicts were prosperous times for the slave trade. In fact, the percentage of the slave population continued to grow in Danish colonies. In St. Croix, the development of sugar production stimulated demand for slaves, who numbered approximately 25,000 during the 1780s, over 90% of the island's population.
Look at that. Look at that, 90%.
A level similar to that of other sugar-producing islands in the West Indies.
So I always say this when I have a conversation with folks that have understanding of the scriptures. The Most High got us. He said he would get us, and he got us. And we're acknowledging that now. We're not blaming anybody. We're not blaming the white man. We're not blaming, the so-called Jews. We're not blaming anybody. We're blaming ourselves. Why? Because we broke the covenant. And so this happened to us. So again, we're doing things as grown men and women, acknowledging our offense. What was that again in Leviticus?
26 and 40.
Acknowledging our offense. And therefore, the Most High has been having mercy on us. And I say this because of my own experience. He's been having mercy on us because he's showing us what Yahweh Shai gave the apostles. He gave them the truth, and now we're receiving the same truth that they received. Thank you, Abba. We've been lied to for many years, and now, like I said before, we don't need these people to understand the history of our people anymore. Abba has given, the Spirit has come and put these things in remembrance for us, and now we're bringing this information out to you. In fact, it's going along with prophecy because Daniel said in the last days, the knowledge of the Heavenly Father shall increase. If that's the case, how is it that you've been in your religion or your faith for over 50 plus years and it hasn't changed not one bit? And we're in the last days. So you must understand that in these last days, if knowledge or the knowledge of the Most High is increasing, that means the things that you've been learned, the things that you've been taught for the last 10, 15, 20 to 50 years, it's not 100% correct. The Most High in the end days will give that correct understanding, and the knowledge will increase about who we are, who he is, what he requires of us. And this is what's going on now. But let's go ahead and finish.
The slave trade in St. Bartholomew was particularly prosperous during the first decades of the 19th century, especially during the war of 1812 through 1814 between Great Britain and the United States.
So it's not that long ago that the Dutch, the Scandinavian countries, was in power. Because the Brits was right there. We know about British because this is recorded in our so-called history here in America. So we should understand that very well. So it wasn't too long ago. But go ahead.
The passiveness of Swedish authorities opened the island up to all kinds of traffic, making it an attractive slave market where slave traders and colonists of all nationalities met. Despite the lesser participation of the Scandinavians in the effective deportation of Africans, Swedish and Danish merchants invested funds in slave trading expeditions, flying under foreign flags.
Go ahead.
For that matter, European slave trading fueled needs that the Scandinavians were in a position to meet.
So these other countries, when it says they were flying under foreign flags, the Scandinavians would go ahead for these other countries, the flags that they say, we need slaves for this country. Okay, we'll go get them for you, and then we'll provide them for you. So this is what they began to do after in this particular time period here. But let's go ahead and read.
Despite Gustav III's commitment in 1790 to do everything he could so that his subjects do not engage in the slave trade, Denmark was the first European country to abolish it, as a royal decree in 1792 banned the transportation of slaves under the Danish flag in 10 years' time.
Don't get too happy. Let's read on.
However, the measure had...
However. There's always that however.
Yeah.
Or but. When somebody says, yeah, but, you know there's something else coming after that. But go ahead.
However, the measure had a perverse effect.
See that? Go ahead.
As it stimulated demand for slaves on the other part of the colonists.
So even though they said, hey, it's outlawed, that didn't happen the way. Because listen, who's in control of this whole operation anyway? The Most High. So even though they say, yeah, we're going to end it, the Most High said, that ain't going to happen. You know what I mean? I'm not satisfied enough yet with the punishment of these Israelites, my people, who have gone astray, committing whoredoms with these other deities. The Heavenly Father was upset. So it wasn't going to end that quick. Hell, we still here in it. Let's go.
Who hoped that their slave population would grow large enough to reproduce itself without external contributions. The abolition of slavery in St. Bartholomew is less clear, since the Swedes only had a minor direct involvement in the slave trade. Its abolition did not have a major impact.
So they say they had a minor, but it seems to me you had a pretty big part. Maybe compared to everybody else, it was smaller, but nonetheless, you played a major part in that too. But go ahead and read that one more time.
Let's see. Since the Swedes only had a minor direct involvement in the slave trade, its abolition did not have a major impact. On site, the colonial administration's passiveness allowed the slave trade to endure. The first Swedish laws providing for punishments against slave traders was passed in 1830. Although they did not succeed in eradicating the slave trade, given how much of the colonists of St. Bartholomew profited from
So they passed these laws, but if it's like, you know, the culture of this people that we're talking about, you know, they make these rules and then, you know, they're not serious about them. You made the rules, but then you continued on to make yourself seem like, well, you know, we tried to stop it, but if you're a country and you're in rulership, you mean to tell me that you can't put certain things in place and put certain things to an end? You didn't want it to end.
Right.
The power structure did not want it to end. Now, there was a few people that was there that probably wanted to end, but it didn't do any good. Because the power structures, the powers that were in power at that time was like, oh, no, we ain't doing that. We making too much money off of this right now. So you mean to tell me you got a cash cow and you're just going to stop it just because of humanity? Now, these people are the curse of the Most High. And we know that when they are under these curses, we can do whatever we want to them and no repercussions. I don't know where they got that no repercussions from, but they erred in that particular part of the knowledge because repercussions is coming. But you finished that?
Yep, that was it.
So let's go down to the next, the papal bulls or the Catholic Church, a connection with the Danish and the Scandinavian in that particular horn, and their involvement in the slave trade. So let's go ahead and read that AP.
Scandinavia's connection to papal bulls and slavery is twofold.
That means it happened, but it's two parts to that thing. Go ahead.
Early Norse enslavement ended as the region adopted Catholicism. But later, Scandinavian colonial empires utilized the transatlantic slave trade. Historically, while Viking societies deeply relied on enslavement of thralls, widespread Christianization phased this out in the Nordic countries under the moral and legal influence of the Catholic Church.
I think was said earlier, we was having a conversation among the priesthood that essentially, and it might have been here in the class too, that Christianity is Catholicism.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
There's no difference. I mean, you might have your little, you know, your different thing that you may believe in and not believe in, but you stem from the Catholic Church. There's no difference there. It might be a difference in your doctrine, but you're the child spawned from Catholics or from the Catholic religion. So go ahead and read that one more time.
Historically, while Viking societies deeply relied on the enslavement of thralls,
They deeply relied on the enslavement. Go ahead.
widespread Christianization phased this out in the Nordic countries under the moral and legal influence of the Catholic Church.
Think about that. Does that really go together, moral and legal, with the
Right.
Catholic Church? I don't think so. They just pumping this thing up to make these particular countries seem like they were all so nice and kind and they were just in everything that they did. Knock it off.
Like we said before earlier, that was the Pope's role. He said he could make these laws
Yeah, kind
because
of.
he's a vicar of Christ.
But let's go ahead and finish this up so we can put an end to this class. Go ahead.
Centuries later, during the transatlantic slave trade, Scandinavian kingdoms engaged directly in trafficking of enslaved Africans, operating largely under the colonial framework established by the 15th century papal bulls.
So established by them. But listen, it says that centuries later, it increased. So as the years went on, it increased. You know, they got better at the game. You know what I mean? They got, more financing to stay in the game even longer. So they had their hand in it. So go ahead and finish that out.
Which permitted the subjugation of non-Christians by European powers. Denmark and Sweden built their own lucrative slave economies. Specifically, that's it.
That's it. Yep.
So yeah, Denmark and Sweden, they built their own lucrative slave economies. They're not guilty. They were a part of that. The 10 toes, they were part of the 10 horns, and they've gotten their rulership. They've gotten their part with the beast. And guess what? Denmark, Sweden, and all of these other countries that we just went over, you will never, ever, as this thing continue on, reach that position of power that you reached. It's over for you. You've played the part. You have sold out to the beast. You've gotten your rewards. Now it's time for you to get your other reward from the Most High. That's why I like the saying in Psalms, right? The wicked and the righteous shall receive their just reward. The hell of a saying, because it's true. So what's just for being wicked? They're going to receive it. And what is just for being righteous? We shall receive it.
So bring us to this point here, as we mentioned in the beginning, and we mentioned throughout the classes, how does the scriptures apply to us as it relates to the curses? We talked about Deuteronomy 28. And in the beginning of the class, we talked about, and throughout the class, this whoredom, this fornication, partaking in the great whore of sins, drinking of her fornication, will do a thing. If you would, AP Hakam, let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 15.
But it shall come to pass that if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Most High thy Abba.
So if you don't hearken to his voice, he ain't talking about just hearing. If you don't do what the Most High Abba Yahweh is telling you to do, we'll continue.
To observe, to do all of his commandments.
The commandments, we know, these are the high holy days, the feast, keeping them, as it's outlined in Exodus 34.
And his statutes.
These are the edicts, how we govern ourselves between each other, ethics. And
which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
So this ain't bad doing is going to come upon you. We've defined this. These curses are evil spirits, entities that legally have the right to enter you and rule you if you don't mitigate trespass. And this is what's happening as we going throughout this class. We see our people, as we read in the one document, they knew. They were obstinate. They were unfaithful. They didn't want to keep the Most High's law, statutes, and commandments. And by that, they said, this is why the Muslims are ruling over us. And that's exemplary of this. These evil spirits ruled over them, and they're subjugated, and, they're living as slaves under another country's rule, or nation's rule. Let's see. Let's go to, let's read verse 20.
The Most High shall send upon thee cursings, vexations, and rebuke, and all that thou settest thine hand unto for to do until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me.
So as we mentioned earlier, they forsake the Most High. And they were obstinate about it. They were dead set against it, not wanting to change. And what happened? Just as the scriptures say, you're going to perish quickly. All them souls and lives that were lost during the middle passage, the numbers that they're understating, that live in these watery graves, is as a result of this. So this cursing also that it's talking about, we know what cursing means. Cursing is not saying, God damn, or some other thing, right? Cursing is going into the courts of the Most High, accusing someone else, of a thing, and that spirit of sin coming into you, if the trespass is not mitigated, becomes to rule you. This vexation, we talk about it. These are accusations. These are what these horns are doing to Israel, as we clearly demonstrated. Let's drop down to verse 23.
And thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, and the earth that is under thy feet shall be iron.
As Kahan Gabari brought out earlier, what that scripture is saying is your life is going to be marked with hardship and exploitation.
Yeah.
Under, well, it says here colonial rule, but that's applicable and under these spirits of sin. You're not going to escape it. Your life is going to be hard. Read that one more time.
Deuteronomy 28, verse 23. And thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, and the earth that is under thy feet, and the earth that is under thee shall be iron.
Picture that. If you had a ceiling of brass, right? A ground of iron. I mean, that is, the scripture is reflecting oppression there. Let's read verse 25.
The Most High shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies.
And that's self-explanatory. You seeing this, as it pertains to our class, the banishment of the Jews out of these areas, the inquisitions, the things that were happening to them, they were smitten. A lot of them didn't survive that.
That's right.
We'll continue reading.
Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them.
And we flee 7 ways. As we show, looking at the surface, how we were dispersed, we went everywhere. We didn't go to one place. You got people in West Africa, South Africa. You got people that ran back into the occupied territories of Romans.
Yeah.
They went east, were spread everywhere.
And shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth.
So as we see here, we're everywhere. We're fully allocated in all the diaspora of the world. Let's go to verse 38.
Thou shalt carry much seed out into the field, and shall gather but little in, for the locust shall consume it.
So as we talked about the ones that were artificers, traders, who got their subsistence for the Muslims, they didn't benefit from their talents.
No.
They didn't benefit from their intelligence. They sowed seed out there. They got back very little. Who got very much? The ones that were ruling over them. They were the ones that was consuming it, not us, not Israel. And we'll reverse 39.
Thou shalt plant vineyards and dress them, but shalt neither drink of the wine nor gather the grapes, for the worm shall eat them.
So here, this is self-explanatory. That lends itself to the last verse we did. There's things that you're going to do. You can see that here in America. Inventions, things that we've done as a people, well, they're not benefiting from it. We don't have these big Fortune 500 companies like GE and all these other companies. But guess who did benefit from it? The ones who started these companies that was getting this intellectual property from us. Let's go to verse 40.
Thou shalt have olive trees throughout all of thy coasts. Thou shalt not anoint thyself with the oil, for thine olive shall cast his fruit.
All right, so here we read in the first part, it said vineyards. Now it's talking about olive trees. So what this is saying is our people aren't even aware of the covenant. They're not aware that the kingdom is here. This new covenant is here. They're not aware of the oblations. It's talking about the oblivion that's on our people. I believe in Isaiah it says Israel doesn't even consider
Yeah.
who they are. And they're suffering for it. Let's go to verse 41.
If I could bring just a build on that too. So you have here, you have wine, right? What are we using the wine for?
Drink offerings.
And then what are we using olives for? We don't have no knowledge of these oblations, our lifestyle, our culture, our covenant. So it's not even in our minds to even use it for these things, but for other things that's besides what we need. So yeah, we got the grapes, but we're not giving up a drink offering. And then we have the oil from the olives, but we don't know what to do with it.
Right.
Most of us just say we just gonna cook with it because it's healthier. And most of these oils are not even olive oil, but nonetheless, we're not using these things. Even though the olives is casting its fruit, you're not using the olives for the oil to be able to anoint and continue in the oblations. It's gone from you. The Most High took it. I know last week we talked about the oxen. We have the oxen, but or taking care of the oxen, but we don't have the oblations to be able to sacrifice the oxen or to sacrifice the sheep. You know, so the Most High has put us in oblivion to where we're not even thinking, like Kahan Rashim said, we don't even consider who we are and what we're supposed to be doing. But go ahead.
Deuteronomy 28, verse 41. Thou shalt begat sons and daughters, but shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity.
Very sad one. That one is self-explanatory. You think them families stayed together when they went to Haiti? St. Thomas and St. Croix, their mother was in Louisiana and their father was somewhere in South America.
Yeah.
They split the families. They couldn't enjoy the children that they produced because of the provocation, because of the breaking of the law, statutes, and commandments. As Gabaria said, it's a sobering truth. One that I can probably safely say most of us wrestle with.
Yeah.
We want to blame somebody for what we're going through. Yeah. But the sobering truth is we brought it about ourselves. Right? We'll continue to verse 42.
And all the trees and fruit of thy land shall the locust consume.
So these other nations, they consuming our efforts, right? Everything that we're doing is being consumed by them. You know, the horns we talk about, they locusts, right? They, they're just consuming everything that we're producing. Let's go to verse 59.
Then the Most High will make thy plagues wonderful, and the plagues of thy seed, even great plagues, and of long continuance, and sore sickness, and of long continuance.
So here, as Kahan Gabaria said, this wonderful ain't a good thing. He's saying that it just, it can't be topped. There's going to be nothing like it. What you're going to experience, people are going to be in awe that you're going through. These plagues that attack you, and we're plagued. Our seed, the things that have happened to us. We talk about the transatlantic slave trade, all the horrors that are going through us. These are great plagues. And they continued. And to some extent, they're continuing now. The sickness and the long continuance. Let's go to verse 68.
Deuteronomy 28, verse 68. And the Most High shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee. Thou shalt see it no more again. And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
So as we talked about, this Egypt is a house of bondage. We're living in a house of bondage. We went over this in class. The spirit of Egypt is here, right? This is the captivity that we're in. And we were shipped here by way of ships. We've talked about this the whole class. I think that goes without saying. No other nation has gone through what we've gone through as it relates to the slave trade. And he says, you shall not see no more again your home. We have no home. Like I read in that article before, he says they had no dominion.
Right.
They had no home, no place to call theirs, that they were subservient to other nations. We're experiencing that. What people Does that fit? It fits us. It don't fit no Jew. You know, they talk about a lot of things, but they haven't experienced what we experienced. And it says, read that latter part, AP. 68, the and there shall, the last part.
Oh, and there ye shall be sold unto your enemies for bondmen and bondwomen, and no man shall buy you.
So no man is going to redeem you.
Right, and as I said earlier, that word enemies.
Yes, enemies.
There are enemies.
And that's another thing. I'm glad you point that out, Priest, because I was thinking about it. It's like they tell you, how can you trust your enemy? How can you trust your oppressor? You know, it's a sobering thought. When you think about America, they are our enemy. When you look at it and you break it down, their government, their laws, everything is antithetical to the law, statutes, and commandments of the Most High. They're your enemy. But we don't look at it like that. Our people want to make a home here. They say, this is where we're going to live. This is where we make money. They don't have any hope. Like we said, Israel doesn't consider that we're going to be regathered into the land promised to our father, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And so, again, it's not talking about one man buying you back. We're a nation of people. Who's going to regather millions of us and bring us back to where we need to be? Only one can do that, and that's Abba Yahweh.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, that's going to conclude the class, and we want to end it with this. As we talked about with this series, this whole series, at the heart of it is talking about getting your house in order. Wisdom is bringing about these things because something is going to happen.
Oh, yeah.
You don't get this information just because, like I said, we don't use it to chop heads or say, oh, we know this and you don't know that. This information is coming about. This is a gift. It's coming about. As Malak Kahan says all the time, the prophet gets a word to tell the people a thing, to warn them, to let them know, right? As in the days of Noah. Noah went out telling them for 120 years, look, the rain is coming. Get your house in order. Get on board with this covenant. We must get our house in order. And for those that keep up with current events, you know, everybody I talk to, even if they're not into the covenant, you know, it's bleak out there.
Talk about it.
The consternation, the uncertainty, you know. You know, I look at myself, I was like, you know, at least I can lean on Abby. I know you're going to take care of me.
Yeah.
But there's some people that don't have that. And it is dark out there right now. But when you, if you would, Hakam, let's read Revelations 2 and 5.
Remember, therefore, from whence thou art fallen, and repent, and do the first work, or else I will come unto thee quickly, and will remove thy candlestick out of his place, except thou repent.
Very sobering.
Yeah.
Very sobering.
For real.
Reread that one more time.
Remember, therefore, from whence thou art fallen, and repent, and do the first works, or else I will come unto thee quickly, and will remove thy candlestick out of his place, except thou repent.
Again, like I said in the beginning, you were created to worship the Most High Abba Yahweh, to fear him and to keep his commandments. And ignorance is not bliss.
Right.
You must conform. We belong to Abba Yahweh. And this is mercy. The message that the priesthood is coming about was given by way of the Holy Spirit to Malak Kahan, and by way of the priest giving it to Israel and the masses, those that are listening. This is the mercy. This is the comfort that it talks about with the Holy Spirit. He's comforting us that there is another way. I believe it was David says, hope in the Most High Abba Yahweh, Israel. Put your hope in me. And I would say that and reiterate that. Put your hope in the Most High. Come under this covenant. Do the things that are required for you, of you, excuse me. And as the scripture says here, repent. Repent meaning come under this new covenant. It doesn't mean to, it does mean to change, but it means to change from being under the sixth covenant, coming under the seventh covenant, this new and living covenant that was procured for us by way of the blood of Yahweh Shai. With that being said, we'll open up.
I just want to hit that. If you could read that again for me.
Revelation chapter 2, verse 5. Remember therefore from whence thou art fallen.
Stop. Why did you fall? Why did you fall? Some of us don't really know. And you say because we didn't keep the law, statutes, and commandments. That's good. And a lot of you that are saying that, you still blaming somebody for your fall. You haven't woken up yet. So you have to remember why you fell in the first place and do what? Repent. Repent. You can't keep saying you in the sixth covenant. Mm-hmm. We in Moses' covenant. We not. Moses' covenant has been over thousands of years now. And you still holding on to a dead covenant, dead works that you cannot perform at all. You talking about keeping the Passover? Most of you Negroes kept it in America. And where the countries where you were, and according to the law of Moses, you're supposed to keep it in Jerusalem. But guess what? The Jewish people are there, and they're not going to let you come in there and keep that. So you got to remember why you fell and repent and do what? Do the first works. And that is the worship of Abba Yahweh. I'm going to end with that.
With that being said, we'll now open up the floor for questions. Those who are online, post your questions in the chat. And those that that's not the super chat, is it? Where they or the Zoom? Is that the
yeah, the Zoom chat.
The Zoom chat.
Yeah.
Slakia. Those on the Zoom chat, don't be afraid of us.
And I think the super chat they can do live too. Do they do the live on the super chat?
Just
it's okay. It's just a donation. Okay, there you go.
But call in on Zoom. Ask your questions. I mean, we encourage that to ask the questions, and most high willing, we can have an answer by way of the Spirit.
And we appreciate you guys hanging in there with us in this series. I know it's a little different because we're going into history, and that's important, And then it takes a certain skill set, and I'm not saying this to pat ourselves on the back. It's not coming from us. It's coming from Abba. It takes a certain skill set to be able to go into the history and link it up with scriptures. I've never seen this done before in my life with no group that is out there. This is truly amazing and a gift of the Most High. But anybody in the audience?
I'm not sure if there's any online. I don't know who's okay. Look like Cam got it.
Anything online?
Yeah, we've been having questions lately.
They probably sitting there with their mouth open like, I got to go over that class again. It's a lot.
It is.
It really is. But it's amazing when you start seeing what's going on. You can actually see the history, and then you look at the history that's in the Bible, because the Bible is history, prophecies, and what are laws, statutes, and commandments. So when you look at the history, you can kind of see, wow, these guys today are carrying out the same behaviors as their fathers. That's them. We know you by your actions, what your forefathers did. And a lot is coming clear for me in this particular journey here. A lot is coming out, man. It's amazing. I thank the Most High.
Mm-hmm. Now, Slakia, priest.
Khan.
We say a lot that, we're living in prophecy. And if you're not mindful, you can forget that.
Yeah.
We supposed to watch and pray. We looking at the time, we don't fret about it. But, like I said, our hope is to get out of this place.
Khan.
And to be returned. So, well,
Nothing online?
I don't believe so. I don't think there's anything online.
Nothing. Nice.
All praises.
Nice.
Well, again, I reiterate, Israel, get your house in order. For those that are looking to come under the covenant, don't make haste. If wisdom is leading you to come under this covenant, do it. You're not going to understand and know everything. Because again, like I said, we're living in prophecy. And when the thing is done, he coming back, what he said, priest, like a thief.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about in the days of Noah when that rain kept, you know, that raindrop hit Buddy in the forehead, it was over. So while you have time to do it, you know.
Yeah, and I want to add to that about the thief in the night. It also tells you that we, being the children of the day, which you've learned here from the house of wisdom, the day watch, we are not in darkness like everybody else. So where that day shall not sneak upon us as a thief in the night. We see it coming. And the Most High is giving us fair warning. So that day shall not sneak upon us as a thief in the night. Go ahead and read that again. I know people like to use it. But it's going to come as a thief in the night to you who are not watching.
Powerful.
And then it's going to be over for you.
Powerful.
But for us, we awake. We see what's going on, and we're blowing the horn, and you guys are not listening.
Mm-hmm.
But in that, Reese?
With that being said, again, like Abaria said, thank you for hanging in with us. I know it's a little bit later than normal. Again, you know, really lock into these classes. Listen to what the priest is bringing out because it's profound. It's hot off the press. Nobody, you know, and like I said, this is not being done just to be done, just to say that House of Wisdom is this or that. No, this is being done because the love of the Most High, His grace and mercy. He said he would no man perish.
Right.
But we know that that's not the case. People are going to perish because they're stiff-necked and they don't want to do it. So don't make haste. Don't harden your heart to what the Spirit is telling. And with that being said, peace and blessings be multiplied to all. Shalom.
Shalom.
This what he said to me. And this what he said to me. I'll be how he said. This what he said to me. This what he said. Bring me the fruits of the Spirit and live for eternity. I'll be how he said. This what he said to me. Bring me the fruits of the Spirit, live for eternity. I'll be how he said. This what he said to me. Bring me the fruits of the Spirit and live for eternity. I'll be how he said. This what he said to me. Bring me the fruits of the Spirit and live for eternity. What he said. This is 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 what he said. You in the covenant, you the Spirit, you know what I'm talking about. Keeping the feast, if you in the covenant, you know what I'm talking about. Keeping oblations, if you in the covenant, you know what I'm talking about. Sending trash pad wiping out, sending trash pad wiping out. If you in the covenant, fruits of the Spirit, you know what I'm talking about. Keeping the feast, if you in the covenant, you know what I'm talking about. Keeping oblations, if you in the covenant, you know what I'm talking about. Sending trash pads wiping out, sending trash pad wiping out. He said, this is what he said. This is what he said. This is what he said. What he said. This is what he said. This is what he said. This is what he said.
Hey, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. For thou art with me, thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me.